1 to 14, and which I was speaking about, you know what I'm saying? Why did we let Columbus, why did we let
Other people want to understand.
Yeah, the understanding degree and knowledge and knowledge culture. So, you know, that part right there that says he didn't care about the poor part. Like, always question that part. He didn't care about the poor
You know,
part.
so I think I said this in one of the classes. I forget if it was streamed or not. You know, we forget that no matter what, you know, when we, you know, read 120 and stuff like that, you kind of look at it and you make it like it could be made, not you, you rhetorically. In general, if you have to say most of the people that have read it, they read it too epically. They read it too grandly. You know, it's too above their head. You know what I mean? That's why the knowledge degree in the 1 to 10, so many people bear witness that it's not them just yet. Right? There's a whole group of people that feel like it's a tribe of Shabazz, and soon one day men will be born that they will be the children of God. But for now, it's not us, and we're Muslims who submit to the will of Allah who came in the person of Master Muhammad. You know, and all that stuff. You'd rather say that long, drawn out thing. It's just the same to me. How about right now? So we look at 120 and we forget that there are different decisions being made, like the 9th and the 10th degree in the 1 to 14. Right? You can't take them in for 35 to 50 years, which is quite an investment. And then also in the same time be taking devil's heads. It's a very difficult. I mean, there might be places that we can find in history that was kind of doing both, but they would have to have a very stringent process on how they would gauge it. You know, right? And just think about it though. If you had like a 35 to 50 year process to take in the colored man, and you also were taking devil's heads though, that means that there weren't that many white people that made it through 35 to 50, because once they made a certain amount of mistakes, and they're getting chopped off, right? So, or not allowed, or exiled, you know, whatever, what have you, you know what I mean? What have you. We always think the most brutal way, but so 120 lessons also gives you history, which means history really is a series of decisions. That's all history is. History is a series of decisions being made and then repercussions of those decisions. So when you read history, all history, the way you first, one of the greatest ways to gain understanding is to try to delve in there and try to see the keys psychologically in the thinking of the individuals with the power to make decisions. Right? And one of those though is first though to try to analyze Elijah himself. Like, why did he make certain decisions and how he shared it and how he dealt with it and how he decided to teach certain things. You know? That's one way of beginning that process. And when we look at, you know, it says he did not care, you know, we did not care about the poor part. That doesn't mean that you look at those degrees and say, I don't care either, you know what I mean?
Right.
First of all, you want to look at it a little bit more objectively, like a little bit more distance, and say, listen, that's not my time, so I'm not really gonna, you know? But at the same time, I do want you should take time to say, well, what if I was in this situation? With what I know now, if I was in that situation, would I care about the poor part? And then the answer is duh, you would, because look what happened, right? And a lot of times students will do that. And the answer that anyone teaching will be usually, because these are answers that I got, would be like, you know, if I was in that time, I wouldn't have done that. I would have cared about the poor part because everything is mine, so I'm responsible for everything. So just like I'm the best part is what we should be focusing on because we're getting all our fruit from there, and that's the investment that we put in. And you shouldn't multitask because you just stray away in sloppiness. But you care about the poor part because that's what you're going to develop. And you care about the worst part because like a rotten fruit in a batch of fruit, it'll rot everything else. So there has to be some kind of care for all these parts. So we look at all that, and then we might say, you know, they should have cared about the poor part because it became something. And we have the advantage of looking at back from time and seeing what the repercussions of the decision were, like what happened because of those decisions. So we could say, listen, things went, but usually the answer that many elders will give you that I got were like, no, it was destined to be that way, and that was how Allah had written it. You know what I mean? Like, it was. They had to manifest the 6,000-year rule, and all that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? And so it was ordained, and it was destined, and it was written, and it was, a fate determined and stuff. And I think that kind of language itself sometimes takes away the idea that we. I was about to sound Terminator 2-ish. I don't want to say fate, but what you make. You know what I mean? Do that, and go and we're furlong here, but the truth is that when we speak it like that, when we analyze 120, oftentimes we only give the Father the power of making a decision of his own accord, and still going in accord with what the 24 scientists, and who are those 24 scientists? Just the men that were the best knowers of what ought to be, and they happen of all time. There were best knowers that made pyramids, because these pyramids lasted for thousands and thousands of years. You need a best knower who's going to know pretty much just one thing, at least one thing, the continuous weather patterns and possibly the reality of peace versus war in a certain area in order to successfully build a building that is going to last thousands upon thousands of years. Because if you build it shitty, well, it just will crumble, right? But you also would have to know, like, are we building this in a part where it's going to have like a lot of war traffic? Are we going to be able to seal this thing off? Right? Because you could build like this great structure and then it's like, yeah, it was in the worst way. Like, like if you put something nice in the middle of the hallway, it's not going to last too long, right? Everybody's going to trip over it. It's in the way, right? If you got kids, well, forget it. You don't have it, right? So it's the same thing. But they were able to build these buildings and they last, 20,000 years? The Pyramid of Giza, right? The Sphinx, even though they chopped off the nose and all that, it's still standing. And that's older than the Pyramid of Giza, right? So then, when we talk about best knowers, it's just people that knew the perfect combination of factors in order to make a certain decision manifest, right? So if we want to say that about the people who didn't care about the poor part, the way it's written sounds like they were sloppy. But the truth is, if you take it like a generic statement, and also be advised that Elijah's grammar is terrible, so insinuations like sloppiness is a bad thing to do with 120. You know what I mean? Like read 120 like the way we talk and use words. Right. It's not a good idea. When we go, we didn't care about the poor part, we often read that the way we think of saying that statement. Like, I don't care about that. Because every time people say I don't care about something, that's what bites them in the ass later. But it is possible that he said he didn't care about the poor part because we needed it to just do what it does. Right? And for the poor, and also for the poor part to become the best part, it needed the challenge and the what? That influx of negativity, that hell, like that. For example, the main point. When we look at the 12th degree in the alphabet, right? And it says love, hell, or right. A very awkward, a very odd combination, right? And people go, you gotta have love to go through hell to come out right. I hate that phrase. Because it's like, I gotta have some kind of love to go through bullshit. That, in the way that it's said right there, is not my bullshit. I didn't put that together, so I don't know why I have to go through that to come out right. I don't see love like that. I don't see hell that way. I don't see right coming out like that, especially if we're the true and living God. I see love as an intention, the intention that we go into all things. I see hell as the work that we develop and that we're willing to go into. So that work, that hell is ours, right? I liken it to the gym, right? You lift those weights though, right? It's hellish, it's difficult, it's supposed to challenge you, but you come out right. And the way that works, the reason I use that example is because when you build muscle, you're tearing muscle, right? You're actually tearing it slightly, and then you get rest, and then you come out right? So it's the love, hell, or right. You went in there with a certain sincere intention, Right? There's a sincerity thing here. And you go through that work that you design yourself. You see, you have to look at 120 as the hells that we design. I don't really personally read 120 and go, yo, Yakub did those things. You know what I mean? These are things that we did. We all had a part in this. Right? Because every day we have a part in its continuation or it's changing. Right? Or it's revolution into something else. Right? So, to put it simply, that whole care about the poor part, it's the way that you're reading it. A lot of times you read things the way that we speak and the way that we have used the word, which is totally the way that we learn. Mm-hmm. When you read things, you're reading things in the way that you've used them. And that's why we don't always understand other people's cultures. It could be translated and we're still confused. Mm-hmm. We could all be speaking somewhat the same language, but because we came from different places, it clashes totally different, mm-hmm. even if it's the same languages, right? And this whole thing is a crucial part of the 136, because that's what an interorientation is, right? Interorientation is one group of people speaking a language that is different from the people they are about to engage with, right? So we'll put it this way, right? You're the trader, right? You're the person, you're the original people they're going to make the interorientation to. You have one language, you have a different language. You do not speak each other's language. But you are now giving a new idea that is unheard of to them. That's interorientation. And you can see the confusion that will come from that, right? So when we look to 120 though, as us reading it, but also within the stories in it, and the history in it, you have to look at how things are said aren't always exactly how we would say them or how we would interpret them. You know what I mean? They're just being told by one person. So that's why sometimes you want to get, it's always good to, I find it necessary to read as many Elijah Muhammad books as you can, because these are all his annotated speeches, and you can kind of get a feel for the way he speaks. And if you get that one variable out, the way he speaks, the way you'll study it, though, he's like, okay, this is the way he speaks, so I know what is consistent about the way he makes mistakes, the way he uses certain words. And you see, like, oh, he uses this word a little different than the way we're normally used to using the word, and so on and so forth. You know what I mean? Because in that understanding degree, the word care about the poor part is written in a way that is very lax, which is very unheard of in the lessons. Mm-hmm. Right? And you care about them. And you're like, wait, everything is so epic. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? He's shielding, the culture degree is like this whole design shielding off. It's got names of whole places, Europe, right? Rope by the hillside, like it's all, everything is so detailed that it even goes back etymologically, historically, etymology, the history of words and what they mean and how they build up and how they change over time. And like it gives you the etymology word, so it's a long history. Like these words were designed to explain a certain thing. And all of a sudden it's like, you care about the poor part. It's like whatever. And we end up reading it that way. And it might not have been the case. You know? And I don't want you to read things where you look at it and say, that's what it was and that's how it should be. No, you should be honest with yourself. Like if you feel like maybe we could, how could have, because what is the goal of Yaqub's reality? Instead of looking at it like, right, tell us what did he promise his nation he would do, right? That he would make a nation that would graft into his own people. That's what he did. And we build and we get the promise, like that's what he did, the promise and what he did. But what was the insight to it? Like what was the goal? What was the end goal? Like we go back and we interview Yaqub, you know, if Mecca goes back, we do it, you know, Law School of Mecca video with Yaqub, right? Go back in a time machine because, you know, Yaqub, like what were we trying to do back there? Because I got a lot of people that, you know, they wanted to come back with me in a time machine and just return you. Right? And
come to the rap.
You come to the rap because this is shit.
Yeah, pardon me, God. You know,
Please, yeah.
That degree, that wisdom, building
Peace.
that says Yaqub had other rules and regulations that are not mentioned in the session.
Right.
I always been, you know, curious to find out about that?
Well, you find those things out about in the way that societies are built. That's a big other question, right? I'm gonna segue into it since you asked it, right? But like, if we ask Yakub what his intentions were back then, right? And we would have to say that he was trying to what? Was he just trying to do bad things? See, it's kind of babyish to say, like, you're just evil man, and he's doing bad things, and he hurt us all for a long time. And he was jealous of the black man, and he was jealous of other black people. You know what I mean? But the reality of what he grafted is basically a physical manifestation of separation and discord that was already being manifested among us. Okay? So it's literally like he painted a canvas about what he was already seeing. You know, but instead of making like a nice little doodle, a nice little graffiti mural to speak on it, he decided to manifest the people that would expose the weakness of what we were dealing with and show how that weakness could actually thrive for a certain amount of time and actually live on its own. It will have an expiration date, but just by showing that it actually could live and breathe like that means that separation was probably what he thought was the most valid and most important thing that we have to deal with. I would say so because look what he, it was pretty intense what he did. When you look at it like that, and he took a whole Quran, 25,000 year Quran, and funneled that problem into 6,000 plus years, he funneled it into less than a quarter of a Quran. Right? So I'm not, here's my next pitch. Yakub the Great, all hail, you know what I mean? Throwback jersey, 666, you know what I mean? But he funneled a lot of issues in a very concentrated time, period. You see? And it's really our problem now to see if we'll extend that and learn from it. Because just because he did it doesn't mean that we'll master this shit. Like, we get rid of white folk, right? Or, eventually they just would, what's really going to happen is that we're all just going to mate. Those will die off. Others will die off. But eventually just be black, brown, yellow again. You know what I mean? Just by genetic continuation. You know what I mean? There's really nothing that he could do to really stop that, right? Just the census data in the U.S. shows that. So, the real issue is that he could have done all that and we still deal with separation. Because remember, in the grafting process, the first step is separation. Right? In today's degree, you got to separate it. Right? You got to separate the black and brown germ. And the black man is made up of the black and brown germ. Okay? The brown germ isn't a shirt that he's wearing. It's part of his reality. In other words, he's not him without that. And he's not weak because he has a brown germ or he has a black germ. Right? He's him because he has both. So to graft, you have to separate the gene and then attack that middle. And then make it continuous, then you destroy the black germ. And now you could repeat this process. Right? But without the separation, nothing happens. Right?
I think when we talk about the best part based on the understanding degree, the 1 to 14, perhaps the best part of our culture and our nation is, as my understanding is the way Allah taught us. We're entitled to our own understanding of a various lesson or a group of lessons. I've even heard some God teach, there's no right or wrong answer.
Yeah, that's
It's how you
There's no right or wrong answer.
well,
that's getting into
I don't,
it's making like
I don't even bear witness that there's no right or wrong answer in music, let alone
120, right?
I think there are right and wrong answers even in music.
right.
No, I know what the brother's saying. The brother's saying that everybody has their own understanding.
Yeah, but if it's not rooted, and I don't mean to cut you off, if it's not rooted in knowledge, then knowledge will be different.
The books he wrote about this nation were flawed and insincere and badly written in the beginning. And each book he wrote about our nation, the more the worse it got.
Right.
And one of the worst moments in his books is when he says that Allah B taught him that he could believe what he was saying, which I won't go into it. It was wrong anyway. Because Allah B taught him that every man has his own understanding, out of what he learns. And that's
that's what I was thinking of.
That's a lot of crap.
I wasn't thinking so much of Knight, but
Right.
I mean, I know a little bit about Allah B's history and how far back.
Absolutely.
Now,
Right.
Now,
Remember,
whether he told the truth or not, I don't really. I mean,
what I'm saying is this, right?
Muhammad Knight told the truth or not, I don't know.
Yeah. Let's be intelligent. Let's assume that Muhammad Knight didn't tell the truth. That's the best way to assume. You know what I mean? That's like.
No, what it sounds like he ran with something that Allah be said.
In that case, though, if you read it, it's what Infant's saying. He was running with an understanding that was said correctly and misinterpreted completely.
Yeah.
Because understanding is made up. The building blocks of understanding are knowledge. So it's based on the truth. So you can have your own understanding, you can have your own understanding. But you would have to prove your understanding.
Right.
Like, you don't just go around and say, hey, that's my understanding. Now, I go around and I'll talk about music and things. And I give an understanding that is based on real facts, ideas, conceptualizations, what I'm hearing. I'm detailing things to a core. But even then, though, it still could be just really like a very educated opinion.
Well, I mean that goes right back to what you were saying about Elijah. Like I would have to study Sunez and who he is, what he's about, to see why he's coming up to this conclusion of why Jay-Z sucks. Right? Once he say that, I don't know what the latest person on the billboard is really no good.
That's a really good statement. Like that statement usually is correct.
Right. So
latest blank in the billboard.
And this is what I mean. Like, but you gotta.
Because usually I compartmentalize Jay-Z.
So, but you have your
I'm
understanding.
He's a bad MC because he's one of the most gifted. But
your understanding is based on a particular set of facts that you rock with.
Criteria.
Right.
That's why I like to manifest my understanding, and if I'm wrong, I accept to be corrected.
Right. But then, what you have to understand though is that if you said it was your understanding and then you were found to be incorrect, that's not your understanding.
Yeah.
It was incorrect. Okay, so we don't have incorrect understanding. Like that's my understanding, and it's totally wrong, but it's mine. No, it doesn't work that way.
So that's why
Okay.
I wanna want my understanding to that degree, and if I'm correct, then that's why I'm at. This basically is like a question. I look at it like this: the best part is at the holy city of Mecca, where the knowledge and wisdom of the man first started. That says it in the culture degree.
So is it only one place?
Is in the earth too, and is in our black woman. I can relate it to that, and then the worst part would be the wilderness of North America, because
Is it?
Well, he said the poor part, right? Was the worst was North America.
When he said he don't care about the poor part, I look at it as being in the wilderness of North America.
Peace, cool.
The wilderness is like, when I look up the word wilderness, is an unstable place, and an inhabited place where you're not used to living. So he put that on the worst part and kept the best part.
And I agree with you. Yeah. And when we find understanding would be something like living these degrees out. So you would look at the things you're doing in life and see where you're at with certain things and define them in certain ways. So you would say, this is the best part of the work I'm doing. This is the poor part of what I'm doing. What needs development and is almost at a better level and can be at a better level. And this is the worst part. What maybe it's not what I should be working on. I should scrap it. Like if you use 120 in certain ways like this, then they have great fruit for you.
Peace, Queen Mecca. Peace.
Of course, understanding changes.
Based on growth and
right. Of course, understanding changes, but it has to be shown improvement each and every time.
Right.
You know what I mean? Right. And then understanding can just change in the way that you describe it, right? In the way that you detail it, in the way that you explain things. But yeah, it never is incorrect. Like You know, like, hey, that's his understanding. It's total full of shit. But it's his.
Yeah, you gotta know what is it based on. Where is that person? Where's that understanding coming
That'd be a
from?
really fun world
Yeah.
for certain people that try to get this knowledge at full flat.
Right. It's my understanding, you know,
It's my
like.
understanding, damn it. Yeah, that's babyish, though. You know what I mean? Right? That's babyish. That's like fighting for opinions and stuff.
So when you be building in a cipher, you shouldn't even be using that kind of speaking that's my understanding.
No, you should be.
You should be able to show and prove your understanding.
If you really feel that it can be shown and proven with the knowledge and wisdom that you
wisdom,
have, then stand in square, be steadfast with that. You know what I mean? Hold to that.
Hold your ground.
Yeah, that's what it means standing on the square. You know what I mean?
But also know when you're wrong, realizing, you know, doing that.
Oh yeah, I learned that lesson.
Right.
I learned that lesson, you know, just observing, you know.
Right.
I don't even want to put no names out there, you know what I'm saying? I just learned that lesson from, you know, I learn from individuals, they learn from me. I'm here to learn. You know, I'm here to learn. I think that I'm always gonna be a student because I feel that knowledge is infinite. So, you know.
Well, see, this is where we are. You said, always look at your language. You said, I feel that knowledge is infinite.
Yeah, you know that, yeah, right.
I know knowledge.
Knowledge is infinite. For a fact.
That would be agreed upon understanding, right? You know, so we wouldn't have to go there, right? So it's always looking at your language, though. That's why, like, listen, not everyone's going to be an author to my, you know, lack of delight, but everyone needs the skills that, in this classroom, I use the skills of writing, reading, communication skills, right? We have to develop, obviously we're always working on developing our communication skills, because we're in a classroom, we're
Peace,
speaking,
Mr.
we're learning how to
Lowry.
speak amongst ourselves, among the 5%. We have to learn how to deal with the 10%.
Page true
And we have
true
to learn
self.
how to deal with the 85, of course, and that's what our main desire. The name of this course is Political Education and Civilization Enrichment, so it was based on those communication skills as a first-hand note. But the civilization enrichment, a lot of it goes into play using the skill sets that have become my career, my life, and my enjoyment. And one of the things is that you should be collecting your understanding. You should remember them. You should be testing yourself. You should be being able to put everything that you're thinking into words. Okay? These words are like, it's like the ability to dribble. If you master your words, then you can dribble anywhere you want on the court. You know what I mean? Sometimes people have an understanding, but they can't put it into words. Though. This is an impairment, though. Really unnecessary. So if you go out there thinking like, oh, that's just not me, I'm not that type of person, you'd be surprised though if you just get reading is exactly like working out. The more you do it, the stronger you get. So if you develop these skills, and then also take on the skill of writing down certain things. In this classroom, I do ask. I don't make people bring it in. This is all you. I don't need to because I do it myself. But to have your own journal that you keep. You write about your life. You write about the things that you're doing. You write about how you see the mathematics. You write about how you see the degrees that you're on. But you also write about all the things that you study as well. Okay? A major portion of journals I've written in my life have just been about the books that I read. How I disagree with them, how I see them, what I don't understand, right? All these things. And being able to speak in such a way where now I'm writing down things where I can speak to that author in the way that he spoke to me, which is also practice as well. Right? So it's what I have a little plus that's I call scholarly notation, how to use your journal in that sense. But these are the exercises that you should do because when we talk about getting stronger with 120 and things like that, we'll work on memorization and things like that. But a lot of times the reason that you're not getting the understanding you think will be fruitful for yourself and like really manifesting the way you think you should is because you're not getting practice with actually relaying, right? Knowledge, and it has to be practice, wisdom, peace.
Yo, peace, God.
To share that understanding, right? And as I always say, that knowledge is really that actual fact, that truth, and then it gets used, wisdom, and then it what? Reveals a revelation of purpose, right? So you have to go through all that. One of the best ways is to have other ways of expressing yourself and mastering other ways of expressing yourself. and then the classroom, and then the journal page are places where you could say anything that you're trying to test. Like you could say something wrong here. Excuse me. You could say something wrong here that you're not sure about, and it could explode. Literally, like it could be your experiment with high explosives, and it's okay because there's not someone in the street that is gonna be like, oh, I'm gonna do what he said, and then now like you just told somebody something, and now like they could be doing something wrong and you didn't know. You know what I mean? Like you went out and said, hey, what is this? Is this candy okay to eat? And then, yeah, sure, eat that. And then now they're eating swine all the time. God told me I could eat this. And, he's been eating swine packets for like forever. You know what I mean? Or whatever it was, right? But so to be a stronger student, to really develop yourself, you need as many places of experimentation as possible. Right? So the classroom is one, but you're not always in the classroom. I'm not always in the classroom. And no one really is all the time. So how do you continue that? One of the best ways is to use that journal, use that page. Because you don't always have that another person that you could just bounce ideas off, right? Remember, because they have to be a person that won't be easily led or confused by everything you're saying as well. You know what I mean? So that comes into play as well. That's why the journal is always a good thing. And of course, I don't want to read it, but if you wanted to share something or an idea comes from it, and that's how you develop. A lot of people think like if they see someone that does something like this, that it's all natural talent and stuff. The skills that we usually have are just like small fragments of natural talent that people peek at, and then they abnormally work on them, and then they come into fruition to be something, right? That's why, and that science is very rarely shared on a high level. That's why, rightfully so, we revere, and people hopefully are revering Kobe Bryant for that, right? Because he's someone as a 5% that we should study. Not just watching the highlights and the clips, but it is very rare that you see someone do something at an exceptional level, where you could argue he's the greatest of all time. He's not. You could argue. People have given the argument.
That's interesting. You say that about Kobe Bryant. To mention Kobe Bryant. There was a brother that reached out to me, and he was telling me about his son, and his son plays ball, and that his son, like he had took his son to be interviewed one about a blog, and the blogger asked his son and said, tell me something that a younger 5% will only know. And he said, well, every time you see Kobe on the courts, you're seeing Shamgar. Shamgar taught him all that. And the only reason why I would care about that because I'm a 5%er. You wouldn't care about that. So, and that's something part of our history, but that also goes into see now that Kobe went on to be like a worldwide phenomenon, a worldwide talent, which everybody, show that they appreciated him, and then but that he has a background dealing with the 5%. Something showed him how to do the crossover.
We never know. Some people are blessed to be around other people that teach really great, so they learn how to teach really great. Because it's really just sharing in such a way that you are able to communicate with that person, right? And then there goes what I was saying about the sincerity of things, right? But Kobe Bryant is a rare person that reached the highest level of the field, and he wasn't only able to teach other people at that high level. He was able to teach the principles of reaching a high level in anything to the average person. You see, and that's what becomes the real gift, right? To be able to teach and really what it was is the way. He was teaching how to wisdom to get to an understanding. That was his real work, That's why, I didn't really watch a lot of basketball in the 2000s. I really just watched ice. I just loved the way he was playing. But I didn't watch that much sports in the 2000s. I was too immersed in starting to teach this and all the things I was learning, right? So I didn't do any sports, I got into sports later again because I wanted to add more artistic things to what I was watching and do an analysis, right? I didn't want to just be one note. But when I first saw it was you have to have a vast amount of knowledge to be able to be a teacher. So many people try to teach and they have a talent, but they have very small fountain of knowledge. So that always impairs them. Because what happens is they fill the gaps though, and then they end up teaching you correctly, right? And then that's where you see ego. But when it was one of the most, and the reason that I caught this with Kobe was it was exceptionally boring to me, was the documentary that Spike Lee did with Kobe Bryant. I forgot the name of it, but he followed one whole game with Kobe Bryant, and then post-production, Kobe Bryant is talking about that game and giving you massive details about everything he was thinking. It was kind of boring because the particular game that they chose happened to be one where, he didn't really do that much. He had a very mortal game, definitely by his standards, right? Like a 20-something game, and he shot high, a lot of shots, low percentage, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So it wasn't like a 50-pointer or nothing like that, right? But the details and the exceptional knowledge that he was sharing and the insight and the attention to every single detail that was happening with every other player, the refs, everything. He was aware of where everybody was. I was like, God, the massive amount of knowledge that this guy has, and someone I appreciate basketball so much, was extraordinary. But then, once he retired, the ability to share this where it was adaptable to not only other athletes, but to other disciplines, became almost as useful to like what we would look to see in things like the Art of War, and why people read the Art of War. It's adaptable to everyone's way of strategizing things, right? Because people relate to the Sun Tzu's Art of War, use it, but last I checked, they're not commanding a battalion of people to kill. So how does it relate, right? But to us though, in ciphers of oppression and whatnot, it becomes very useful. And also dealing with negative outside forces, but also keeping our dignity and dealing with things peacefully, not antagonizing, but yet endlessly defending. These are all Art of War principles that we're applying from warfare to this life.
You wanted me to put it back?
That was what Kobe's real gift was. He was able to do that and put it into a context, whether naming it, Mamba mentality, putting it into ideas where we could funnel that into all the whatever we were doing. And that's mind blowing to me. Mind blowing to me. People don't realize how difficult that is. And someone like myself who loves the game, but also appreciates any type of exceptional pedagogy, because just when you look at sports or like when you look at even music too, or the arts, people that do things at the highest level, they are very bad teachers because they have such high expectations and things that are great, so many things are done, they do so easily that they don't know how to break it down simply for another person. So that, the hitter that was hitting exceptionally well doesn't always know how to explain how to hit to someone else. He's like, and you don't know how to keep that in? You don't see that? They don't know how to teach that. The guy that moves like Kobe, there were things that he did on the court that, the average guy just can't move like that. And yet he was able to draw out their fullest potential still. That takes a masterful pedagogy. But if you look at and I always spoke about him because a lot of the things that his life was ended up being different than the average black man. And they point out things that we need to do in our daily life to make us. And one of those things is a plus lesson that I have as well about the well-roundedness of study. Right? I forgot the name of this plus lesson.
Yeah, no.
But I basically bracketed the diversity of study that a student should go into. Oftentimes as students we study just one thing. But if you look at schooling that has been very effective over the course of years, or if you just look at rich folk and what type of study they do, they don't always excel in all the things that we would expect them to excel. Even rich people.
I ain't going nowhere.
But in many of the fields that you don't see him excelling, they still are well-rounded in learning about them. So for example, from the rich upper white classes, you're not seeing massive amounts of exceptional musicians, right? Say, or exceptional athletes. But these facilities to engage in all these things are open to them at all a very young age. So that means that the exceptional student, if that young child especially, the more different things that they are exposed to, the more that they are become a cultured person. And so what happens with a very cultured person? In other words, they'll have their understanding has many different ways of output.
You can what?
Because the knowledge, wisdom, understanding is mental. The culture, power, and equality is outer. Once you see a man's culture being lived, it's out. He cannot take it back. You saw it already. So the culture man, has many outlets. So if a culture man has many outlets and he's developed that through his education, then he has a lot of opportunity. In other words, he has a lot of power. Right? And look at Kobe. Learn many languages. Had been around the world because he grew up in Italy and other places, right? He was very well educated. So he had many ways of educating himself about the things that he loved. In this case, right, basketball. But it could have been a lot of other things. You know what I mean? And as we see, those things continue to be just a regular part of his life, right? He goes to this basketball, he doesn't have to read books and things. But you see, he obviously did because he got an Oscar for a poem that he wrote that was made into a cartoon. Right? Then he also helped create a series of fiction novels that he had other writers write, but he created the premise, and that's powerful within itself. So other fields of expression, other fields, he developed them as well, even when they seem like they're not very necessary to what? To basketball, right? You would think that they wouldn't be necessary. But they became necessary because he is not just a player, he's a cultured man. See? So these are different things. You should be well-rounded in all these things. You should be well-rounded in what's going on in the news, right?
Oh, they call it such and such.
Being God, you should, right? What news services? Diverse news services? Do you just watch one?
Nigga, who is
Are you just watching the left-wing news? Or are you just watching this? You know what I mean? Like, how do you get your information? Right? How do you, the literature that you choose, how do you choose it? Is it just one type of book?
You know what I'm saying?
Is it just history books and science books? Right?
Brothers,
or
big brothers.
Is there added literature like fiction novels, poetry, all these things? Are you well-rounded yourself so when you read different types of things, you know how to read them? Right? Like for example, when you read a book of information like history or science, you cannot read it the same way that you read novels or a book of poetry. You know, like you said, we can read really fast and absorb facts. When you read poetry, you're reading it for the beauty of it. So, you know, like a page of poetry with just 20 words on it isn't supposed to be, oh, it's 20 words. I read it quickly. That's not, you're not reading it correctly. Right?
Like I said,
so all of these things come into play, right?
Perspective of what I've been taught.
No, it's peace.
You know what I'm saying?
Some novels, scholarly novels.
In terms of, you know, the term
other type novels that are not
and what it's supposed to mean.
In depth.
Say again?
Respectfully.
Even in terms of novels.
You know what I'm saying?
You have scholarly novels.
Like, yo, guys, like, nah.
Somebody might be getting into a certain form of
what we did was it's pre-alphabets.
Ideology. You're putting it in the novel.
Curiosity.
To a character or
that's the beginning. Even let's remember C1 is after Philosophy was number 2.
Lack of a better
So in the beginning, everybody got it how they got it. Like even down to mathematics, everybody, even the first one,
it's not just
something around.
Yeah, it's more like that.
Yeah,
he seems to go, the invisible man, everybody knows. He seems to be doing a lot of experimenting.
Yo, that shit blew my mind.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? But at that time, I opened up the book of talk and access. Because when I got it this way.
In the classroom here,
all my
everything
shit
is
is handwritten, guys.
right?
I never got it.
So,
I never, first of all, it was work. It was from
when
mouth
you email
to
me,
ear.
I send a lot of things.
Because I was real.
And one of them is that beginner book list.
stuff.
It's broken down by subject, so you can engage in particular
When I got
subjects.
Nas Power, Nas
And,
Quality,
one of the books,
wrote
when I picked the novels, I picked
my
Ralph
own
Ellison's
120
Invisible.
and the black
But
marble.
when you look at Invisible Man, he brings out a lot of ideas and stuff like that.
Many
You
of
should
them.
be able to encounter many
The last
enemies.
one-
You know, the Book of the Samurai,
last
right, is
one-
my favorite saying about this.
I remember.
That's
Was
the
in
Hagakure.
1992.
that's a karate book?
And
It's not. Yeah, I wouldn't call it a karate
another
book.
one.
It'd be more of a Bushido book. The way of the samurai is totally different. You know, even though it's Japanese.
Because when
But
you
the
see my,
Hagakure, the book of the way of the
my
samurai,
book from 1992,
um,
you be like, yeah,
it's more. It's a philosophy
Like,
book.
whole
It's
lot-
not teaching you how to
whole
slice this.
lot of shit.
And
So boom, so my brown shit
Is
side.
in that
It's
movie
like,
Ghost Dog, it's
right.
like way of the
But
samurai.
we
that-
both
Exactly.
That's like a
we
wisdom
in the
book.
right,
back.
right, and that is
So,
quoted.
I'm just studying.
Actual
so
passages are
you know,
quoted in that movie from the book.
So he saw my
It's funny,
shit
when I
all
saw that
fucking
book,
yellow and
movie
shit,
in
like
theaters,
they sitting on the 22
brothers
letters.
actually got upset because they kept showing words on the screen. And one brother with his lady, they walked out so upset that they had to steal
it's
these
my
words
book.
on the screen.
If you my brother, so that's what he's
It's the
gonna
most,
see.
one of the most, I don't know, there's a whole
But
list
when I'm
of
looking
85
at it,
things, but that was one of the most top
I'm like,
85
because I wrote it.
things I've ever seen in my life.
I took the time to read the stuff and I wrote it.
But in the book of the,
And
in the Hagakure, one of them,
I know
I'm
how
paraphrasing,
old I was when I did
it
that.
says that we should be able to see always and be more in accord with our own. Right? You're Allah.
Yo,
We made everything. So you should be able to see the perspectives of other
I
people without
forgot.
being absorbed into it.
more shit than I.
And if you do, the only time that you should realize if you're being
So I had
absorbed
to
is if
fast
it's
forward.
wasting your time. Right? So, you know, you could see, you can go to a
And
church
I'm
one day and you wouldn't
moved
be,
around
become
several
Christian
times
all of a sudden.
in my
But
life.
you also could get something out of it, like see how people
I still got
see
books
their perspectives.
downstairs in my
And if you're trying to really be
basement.
sincere with the 85, then you can try to see, well, you know, what value did it get
So
out
I
of it,
check
you
them
know?
out.
Aside from just seeing how the blood
That's like motherfucker wants.
right? Try to see like, you know, what kind of value do they get out of it? So what do they need that's being pitched on that they are getting? You know?
Like he's one of them big brothers.
Because
Like,
a lot
when
of
I
people,
first met you,
when they deal with the
I was
wrong
19,
things, it's
he
also
dealt with
because
the
there's some
fire
right
facts,
things that they
co-fit,
absolutely need
contagion,
and don't want to be without.
So he, Josh,
So they don't want to be
he'll tell
daring
you, like,
and
man, when I
leave
first
something.
met you, that's before,
Right?
you know. Cause
So you gotta
God
look
did
at all
his
those
way,
things
like,
when
why
you
you
look at
doing,
people.
why you
You know,
doing X,
people are
Y,
not
Z,
really
blah, blah, blah.
monolithic
Come on, man.
in the
I'm
way that
holy,
they
I'm
go
not.
about certain things as well, you know?
I don't judge you with shit you go through and you
Even though-
won't
even
X,
though
Y,
nation-
Z, and drink or smoke.
Yeah, even
Why
in
you
our
going
nation.
through shit?
Definitely, I'm on, I mean,
Yeah,
I
no,
don't fuck with you.
no,
well,
we
it's
shouldn't.
only the foundation.
Yeah, and we shouldn't be.
When I
We shouldn't
met you,
be.
bro.
No, we shouldn't be.
When
The
I
way
met
that
you,
I
bro,
do things
you could give me the
from the
co-second
beginning when I taught you, it was
contingent
very unorthodox.
of the Ingram
You
before.
know, giving out a curriculum,
I said, I'm sure that was very
going
good
through
time.
lots of different books. All of that thing is totally unorthodox with the way that students will learn.
He's a, yo, he's a pigs. Look.
Who's that?
He's a pigs. Knows but the cars making it difficult to do the knowledge. That's Amar. That's Amar right there. You know what I mean? That's people. Somebody who doing the knowledge. Say why the God speaking over Sunez. He's trying to do the knowledge.
Okay, please, I will.
I mean, yeah. Well, pigs.
Tell him I said shut up.
And reading more and writing about yourself. So I'm gonna put that into practice. Because my goal is just like the sharpen as sharp as I can get. You know?
Yo, partner, God, that's our brother. You know what I mean? Just doing, you know, he wanted to build with me real quick.
Hey, you want to stream though, then you gotta deal with what happens.
Yeah. Right. You got to deal with it. What happens in the class? You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, it is what it is. Back to the class.
Thing. We like to talk a little bit too much.
Yeah, a lot of strange things be happening.
Yeah, I mean, and that's not so strange. That's not so strange. That's one of our brothers. But you know, we like to build and whatnot, and you know, and kind of make things active where other things are taking place, and you know, they kind of was like, you know, why is it going? It's getting be a little difficult to do the knowledge, and you know.
Yeah, I'm concentrated over here. So I was
Yeah. No, and everybody else was trying to do the knowledge, but he was wanting to build with me about whatever he wanted to build with me about. You know, and I didn't want to be rude. Like, yo, God, like, you know, but it is what it is.
I guess for the streamers, I was saying that this course comes with a beginner list where I've written in such a way where it's broken down by subject, and there are books that under two criteria at least, books that you should have in your collection that might be a little bit too difficult, so they don't seem like beginner books, but they should be owned. Like, let's say African Origin of Civilization by Diop, which is a difficult book. It seems like a beginner book by title, but it's not. And then books that you should have that are actually easier to start with on certain subjects, you know? And I broke them down by subject, so if you're interested in the subject, you can go to the numbers that accord with it, you know? And most of those books, because I made this class digital, a lot of those books I haven't counted to see how many I have digitally, but this class comes with a lot of digital materials. So if you email me, not you streamers, I don't have to, you're gonna have to write a lot of stuff to me, but sunez97@gmail.com, then, I send you all this stuff. But if it's the people streaming, then you have to actually tell me stuff about yourself and what you wanna do and all that kind of stuff. Don't just email me and say, hey, Sunez, send me that stuff. You know what I mean?
I don't even know you.
It don't work like that, right?
I do get emails like that. I do get emails like that.
Just out of the blue of people you don't even know.
Yeah. The shit that you said in class, though, I need that. And I'm like, just talking here for like 4 hours, and I don't know what you need. You know what I mean? But yeah, we talk about the knowledge of self, but we don't really do things that actually let us know more about the knowledge of ourselves. And that's why writing is such a big deal to me.
Well, let me actually go soon because somebody just asked on the stream here, says, peace. Why do guards wear so much polo? What's the science behind that? Well, I mean, I don't personally don't always wear polo. I mean, I got a polo coat, you know what I mean? But I don't wear. But I let the guard because he's a real polo guy.
Yeah, I think that the first answer to that question is personal because I'm also a lowlife. I'm in the Low Lives organization, which is a hip hop organization. It wasn't always a hip hop organization. It was a boosting crew in the 80s, but by the late 90s, Thurston Howell III, one of the founders, really wanted to make this a real hip hop organization based on the principles of love and loyalty. And he started to eventually recruit artists, MCs, anyone doing something in hip hop to basically flood in the name of this. So you have lots of people that still do boosting and negative things with polo, but for the most part, and how I became a lowlife was literally because of the work that I do in hip hop, and also in general, but mainly for that hip hop work. And that's why you see me named also in my books and my literature and everything, be also named Skill Illustrator Low and things like that, because that's a hip hop persona. It's really a knighted title I was given by Thurston Howell. But us low lives wear the polo, not only because we love the polo and its diversity, the clothing itself, but it really represents, first of all, the fact that we can wear the best clothes, and we don't have to, we don't have to assimilate, we don't have to accommodate, we're allowed to wear what we want to wear and actually be us.
See, guys. See now this is where it gets a little bit, convoluted because the brother asked, he said, I argue with Lord Jamal about this. Doesn't civilization come with releasing vanity? Like,
Wait, what did he say?
doesn't civilization come with releasing vanity?
Releasing vanity.
What vanity?
Let me answer that because that's also in line with another reality that I live as well. But what we're saying is this, right? As far as low lives and how that became part of the life, that was why low lives do that. That's why we do that now, because it becomes the uniform of how we present ourselves, right? And if we wear a uniform, it ought to be one of the most nicest. It ought to be clean. It ought to be clean cut and diverse to show all of our reality, right? The other thing is this: as far as like, the ego and the vanity and stuff, right? I'm also a martial artist, and to do martial arts with me, and for me to teach anyone martial arts as a sifu, that concept of letting go of vanity and things like that, those are all very superficial sounding. Because when someone cleans themselves, they're already being vain. When someone takes care of their body, they already position themselves to say that it is of value. We're looking at degrees, and he says he likes the devil because the devil gives us nothing. If you reverse the polarity of that, then we are saying that we now know what the real value is. There is a value to be placed on you and what you do. Okay? Who you are and how you present yourself. And the Father always taught us and presented himself in the best way that he could to the 85. Right? So a lot of brothers wear polo simply because it's the nicest clothes.
Yeah, and I want to say like, well, what does this brother have though? Does he have another something that to replace? Because he says we are supreme beings, not assimilate American culture.
Well, you know what's funny, right? Is that you're talking to one of the most unassimilated individuals in the planet. So my entire life has been not assimilated. When we talk about assimilation means that you take on the culture and the ways of the customs and the realities of the dominant population, and it takes away from your essential way of life. Okay? Now, that also links to appropriation, where you take a people's culture and use it for yourself as if you came up with the culture. The truth is that where I'm coming from with this, and really for many of us that wear polo, we are actually appropriating something that is of the dominant culture. That is something that is only for people that have a certain wealth bracket to be able to afford. Right? And was always geared toward them. We made it something where we're deliberately appropriating it rebelliously. Right? There is no assimilation because the culture that we live is not compromised. And I laugh, and it's something I joke a lot. A lot of people say stuff, and they'll say, oh, polo and stuff like that. But polo comes from someone that is from this actual city, one of the boroughs, and actually made this stuff up. Whereas most people are wearing stuff that isn't even from places that they even where it came from. And a lot of people wear stuff made by Nazis, right? If you're wearing your Puma or your Adidas, you're wearing Nazi clothes. So, and when we think about it, if we want to attach our morality to things, then you're not also looking at that we're also in the devil's civilization. And we don't have complete control over how we're dressing ourselves unless we go Gandhi and spool our own wear.
Well, that's what I'm saying, because he was saying...
Because people go out there and they make a t-shirt and say, I made a t-shirt, it has the flag on it. But that t-shirt wasn't made by God. That t-shirt was designed by one of the gods. Right. It's a little different.
Yeah, so
those fabrics and the people putting the cotton together, you don't even know where that cotton came from.
I would like to see what the brother comes up with, because he's saying, you don't want to. Is what saying basically that polo is another white man's company like Gucci. We should wear dashikis, maybe or NGE logos all day. I don't agree with that necessarily. You know what I'm saying? I just give me come with something, and if it's fly, I'll support
it. First off, I don't think I look good in dashikis. That's my personal shit.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And I'm not wearing crowns with tassels on it because it feels silly to wear strings off my head. It's just the way I feel. So like... You
don't need to be uniform. Yeah, I agree with that.
It's like we have to make up our own thing so that way we could actually have something of our own that is corny and like that. I don't get that. We should be we're part of this whole society. You know what I mean? We're part of this whole society. And look, we should be making our own clothes. We should be designing our own wear. You know what I mean? When I say that about lowlives, some of the most original hip-hop clothing in the last decade has not come from other people that aren't lowlives. They came from lowlives. So if you follow your underground hip-hop and you buy t-shirts and you buy 5-panel caps, and you got into the buzz of buying 5-panel caps from Spit Gems and Shazoo Yord, and you was buying t-shirts and you were buying low-life gear, you were buying things that low-lives made. So when we talk about what's assimilation is when you take on negative aspects of the society, and what also comes with that is letting go of the most fruitful aspects of your life. We're talking about something that we don't even have control of yet. So when you switch up, what are you switching up with? You know what I'm saying? People always talk about stuff, but they don't really know the whole stages of it. They talk about, oh, I'm not wearing polo, but they're Nike'd out. So it's like you went from one sweatshop to another. And technically, the only sweatshop that you can show and prove is the one that the Nikes came from.
I
I wear a
didn't,
lot of Nikes.
and I didn't know that Sunez about the Pumas and the Adidas.
Yeah.
I just learned that right
That's, and mind you, if you just want to have fun, read Wikipedia gives you enough knowledge about that. It was Adidas first, right? Nazis. When they got exposed, one of them snitched on the other partner, who they were brothers,
Mhm.
and he got mad for being snitched on. He said, "How you snitch on me like that? I'm leaving," and he made Puma.
Wow.
So that's how you get Adidas and Puma. You know what I mean? And Adidas and Puma make that shit. And James Harden isn't an idiot for
And
endorsing it or whatever. It's just what it
I've
is.
been wearing Pumas and Adidas for I don't know how for like forever.
I don't know if
Can I ask you a question?
no, please.
You, I forgot it, but I don't even think it's a lesson, but it's a lesson in a sense. The question is asked, who are the 5%ers? Something to that degree, and the answer is, you can find them in high society, some of them are dressed bad. Anybody remember that?
I know what you're talking about.
That's a plus lesson.
Plus
Yeah, about the diversity of what a 5% looks like.
No, just, yeah.
He looks like you and me.
Made me think of that.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it doesn't deal
Let me
with,
tell you something, right? 90% of the people that are in New York City that'll have some issue is wearing a down coat, right? And a down coat is made by plucked feathers, so that they pluck off.
It's a dig. We're speaking another language. That's not the language we speak.
Right.
My
So I'm
bad.
saying though, like, there's a lot of horror that goes on when we just talk about clothing and the clothing that we're wearing. You know, so you can.
Man, don't hate the God because he wearing polo.
No, it's fine. I want people should always have. There should be a suspension of belief or acceptance in things. There should be questioning with things.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And we shouldn't be following things just because. You know what I mean? And that's even among lowlives, the validity of Ralph Lauren and his integrity towards us was always an issue. That's why forcing that issue, if we just accepted it, then it wouldn't have been forced, and you wouldn't have seen Thurston Howe in the documentary explaining his vantage point, or Thurston Howe actually, modeling it and actually being a spokesperson from his reality and not assimilating where he came from to actually be accepted in that cipher of that clothing, right? So what I'm saying is, like, we have to look deeper into certain things.
Right.
You know what I mean? We have to look deeper into certain things. We don't always know, like, where people are coming from. You know what I mean? And I laugh because most of the people that say that, they wear American flags all over their clothing. And they'll have a problem with Ralph Lauren, you know? So, contradiction and hypocrisy are the things to navigate in all this world, especially when you get knowledge of self, you know? Will you deal with this knowledge of self if only under the condition that everywhere you go, you will be accepted as a black man, right? Because there's plenty of ciphers where I could go to where a lot of people wouldn't see me as a black man. They just see me as a brown man that is different. You know what I'm saying? And if I really push the issue on some assimilationist tip, I could go to certain countries in Latin America and pass for white just based on the success of whatever I've done, right? If I, especially if I can attach it to some kind of monetary success, right? So these are all things to think about. We're contradictions in this world. The Father was a contradiction in this world. He was teaching righteousness, but he also gambled. You know what I'm saying?
What's unrighteous about gambling? There's nothing unrighteous about gambling.
I say, yeah, but it could lead to
Right,
something
okay, it
negative.
could lead to, okay,
You know
yeah.
what I'm saying? Because it can lead to addiction and things like that, right?
Mhm.
Just like drinking and smoking, right? Because technically drinking, there is no need to drink alcohol. Like, it's not necessary for your health, like, at all. You know what I mean?
It's allowed, man.
Listen, you alcoholic video recorders.
No, I'm just saying it's alcohol. I don't even drink like that though, but
That's what the 85% told me before. You know what I'm saying? He said, how come some of your brothers drink, some of your brothers smoke? Are you allowed to do that? And I told him, you're not really supposed to do that. That's not good for your body. You know what I'm saying? But I don't really be on brothers like that. If the brother drink and the brother smoke, I leave him be.
The Father realized that in order to deal with the youth, you have to understand contradiction versus hypocrisy. You know? If someone taught me as I was taught the science of the original man, and knowing that I'm a black man, but in this world, many
Peace,
people
AG.
try to deal with colorism and straight separate me from that. And then I would say, listen, it's going to be too much of a problem. I'm just going to live Hispanically. You know what I mean? Which would be kind of gross. But I can live Hispanically, then I'll just do it because it's easier. Then with what I actually do know, that becomes a hypocrisy. A hypocrisy that the society will not even like think twice about it. Especially if I lived in certain places like Miami, right? But if I know this, then I deal with the contradiction of that reality. You know what I mean? That not everyone is going to see that, but that's my truth. And I don't want to say my truth because then people think it's my own. Truth is something that is universal. I hate that phrase. But it's the way I live that truth. It actually is true. I've shown and proven and can show and prove it anywhere. So I'm going to deal with it even if people aren't accepting it. What am I supposed to do? Wear a t-shirt all the time saying shit?
I think, in terms of contradictions, I've heard God's bill. I'm not going to name anybody, but I've heard God actually say in the Mecca Parliament, I indulge, but I don't overindulge. And I'm thinking of another brother who, you know, I miss him. I love the brother. He used to teach here. He was known to have a drinking problem sometimes.
Yeah.
And you know, you can try to help somebody like that if you're close enough to him or they'll listen to you. And in terms of Allah, his biggest contradiction to me was when he was in the Nation of Islam. But I've been taught and what I've listened to. And he came across that Build or Destroy degree in the 1 to 14. He told some of those top people, the lesson says I'm God. And
Peace, Sean Love. I'm gonna build you soon.
they told him you can't teach that here.
Allah world manifest, huh?
That's a contradiction right there.
Yeah.
Came out started teaching
I honored them of what your issues are, so
I mean, it's
so that they know
good
that
to
you need a
show
little
by
help.
example, you know
You know what I mean?
By not drinking.
You know,
and not
you'll get it
smoking,
together.
But a lot of brothers do it. You know, I leave them be because you can't change. I feel like this. You can't change a man will. When somebody's addicted to a substance, if they want to continue to get high or want to get drunk, they're gonna continue to do it. If
Wait.
they don't got their own willpower to stop, ain't nothing gonna make them stop.
Seniors, hold up. You doing an analysis of this?
To what?
To the he said, I mean to cut you some. He says, but where's Bolo every day? Don't get it. Having additions is another thing. I can't do the knowledge to the science. Okay.
First of all, it's not science. It's just ideas about a way of life. For me personally, low lives is a hip hop thing that I live as well. I do hip hop every single day. And people that know my work though, I pioneered my own element of hip hop. I defined it, I created it, I helped co-create it, and I defined it the most. So like, if I wear a uniform that represents that, hopefully it's diverse enough where it looks different every day. But you know, unless that, but I don't see a problem with that. You know what I mean? I don't see a problem with that. You know, if I was wearing like robotic outfits every day and it was a very limited diversity, then I could see. But come on,
You got a lot of patience.
No Allah world manifest. Not using it as a sword. I'm supposed to be your brother. Just get it together,
right?
and then come among
I'll
us.
tell you this,
Get it
guy,
together first.
When we deal with stuff, a lot of people wear sandals and they always talk about everybody else's.
Ashanti, your rule.
You know what I'm saying?
There's some
We live
guards
in
in
the world.
Victory of
Like,
Law. The
and
guard
you have
light
to
is out
understand,
there.
though,
There's
that
some
a lot
guards
of
out there.
history
You can build them.
in
Peace.
every single aspect of life that we're still learning about. And it's just that we just didn't take the time to indulge and actually engage and see what it was, right? So, for example, what cap is that? Is that a Yankee cap?
Yankee cap.
Do you know, I'm a Mets fan, so I know this because I'm one of those Mets Yankee haters.
Okay.
So this is out there, right? And it may not be a big deal to you like that, right? The Yankee cap, right? The symbol of the New York Yankees actually is a stolen symbol from the police medallion that was given to widows of police victims, right?
Peace,
And it was the
AG.
shady
Much
police
appreciation
chief
to you.
It was the shady police chief.
You're a legend.
at the
Thanks for
time
tuning in
who
and
decided to
acknowledging.
take
Peace.
the funds that he was stealing from the New
Peace to
York
you and yours.
NYPD and take those funds and start up his own baseball team. Okay? When that baseball team becomes the Yankees, and the symbol that he used though was that medallion. So you could say something that was that medallion, the NY, the way that NY is written. You know what I mean? And of course the NY of the Giants, which becomes the same lettering as the way the Mets use it. Those are just variations of it. Right? But that original thing, and then so I always could get on Yankee fans for that one. You got some big symbol on it. And Yankees is negative to me always because I'm.
Oh man, see anything that's like anything that just got like.
I'm not even a baseball fan.
Right.
I'm from New York. That's
Yo,
what
man.
No, I am. I'm just saying, and that's why I know that stuff. You know what I mean? So I grew up with sports, so we always followed like where these things come from. Like Ace Daxman followed like what is a Met? And he goes, well, it's short for Metropolitans and things like that. Like you learn because you love sports and stuff like that. You know what I mean? And Yankee is the negative term for colonizing white man from America, United States of America. You know what I mean? So as a militant Boricua, being radicalized to the independence for my country that my parents were from, I was never. And it became even more of a reason not to be a Yankee fan. You know what I mean? Even though I lived in the Bronx.
Yo, Greg, there's some guards out in Indiana too, God.
Almost 10 years.
There's some guards out there, Greg. I was just building the guard that's gonna be out there real soon. He just was traveling, so peace.
If you haven't read the history, I want you to know the Mets were serious underdogs.
Right? That's right. Yeah.
And that Baltimore Oriole team, I always thought they had 420 game winners. I think they only had 320. This was a big thing in the 60s. The 20.
Oh yeah, no, 20 was like
20 game winners,
yeah.
And these pitchers used to finish their games.
Yeah,
Very often you see a relief pitcher.
Right.
They only had 320 game winners, but that was good. They had Frank Robinson, they had Boo Powell, they had Brooks Robinson. This is one of the best teams on paper ever assembled. But part of it was the Mets were so hot. They were red hot. And you don't have to go to your Google to know what happened in that World Series.
Absolutely, yeah.
It was a big thing.
I mean, in my childhood, the '86 Mets are really where I become
I remember them too.
And I go to the Ticker Tape Parade and I see them. I see Ron Darling. I see Keith. I see, all that. But my father's a Mets fan.
Yeah, AG, that's a fact.
Because he was a
That's a
Dodgers
fact. He should get off of this right here and put him on a sheet or something.
And they gentrified LA to make the stadium. They actually displaced people there. But they left Brooklyn because they weren't people. There were too many of us here in Brooklyn. So that's why they left Brooklyn. And my father was like, he was a Brooklyn fan, so he just went over to the new team.
My mother too.
And then once the Mets, because they were so thrilling in '69, a lot of people that liked the Mets became die-hard after that, because it's a Cinderella team. It's a Cinderella team, one of the great Cinderella teams.
Well, he was when he returned, he was young, but Tommy Agee made two of the greatest World Series catches of all time.
Yeah.
Ron Swoboda's still here, and when he leaves, they're gonna bring up this catch. That had he missed it, I think Brooks Robinson hit it. Had he missed it, it would have been an inside the park home run. We're going all the way to
Peace.
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 Yeah,
Peace Almighty God.
69.
All right, well.
Yeah.
Peace Almighty God. Peace.
Peace Almighty.
Listen, if you don't know me, my name's Shaq Kemp.
I'm Brian Kareem.
My handle is the nurse. My handle in the nation is the nurse. I don't mean no disrespect. I'm not trying to run into your civilization class or the God's civilization class. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
I'm coming through, but I love my brother.
Peace God.
Peace Almighty God. Listen, when I come in to give you right now, it's not you. I ain't got nobody special. You the only one in there. Listen, you the youngest one, or you the youngest one in? How old are you?
I'm 52.
52. How old are you?
I am equality with, pardon me, I'm equality knowledge.
Equality knowledge.
Equality wisdom.
All right.
So I'm the youngest. I'm the youngest in
I ain't
here.
fucking with you. I ain't fucking with you. Because I know the bleachers.
Come here, God, man. Come on, man. Look, man, look.
I'm just building with y'all.
God, Billy, that's the nurse. That's the nurse.
Understand
exactly.
How can you understand the
Peace,
science
man.
if you can't add on to the science?
My
My jewel is why I came through here right now. I'm adding on to the cipher. I am that knowledge that add on to that cipher. This is where understanding the
We
cipher
got the other God.
is understanding the knowledge cipher. Just show and improvement. I love you with all my heart, and I gotta give something back on this said day for it to be complete. That's all it is. My name's Shakim Allah. If you don't know me, I'm the one they call the nurse. I'm a licensed nurse in the hospital. Kind of smart, and I'm kind of retired.
The Bronx, Lebanon.
Oh!
I remember you.
You understand what I'm saying?
Right.
You walk in Bronx, Lebanon.
Yeah.
Back in the days, you walk in Bronx, Lebanon. You walk as a security guard. Listen, I'm looking for Allah. I'm in the emergency room. They come find me. That's Allah.
That's all.
You understand what I'm saying?
You could go ask anybody over there for,
Ask the God. Ask them.
and they gonna point out the gospel.
See, our science that
Yo,
Allah
life
taught
of law. I
us.
know you
When
understand
I
the
was
cipher of
taught-
what we dealing
When I
with.
was taught about
Yeah,
this
God,
5%
this is what we dealing
of
with,
being
God.
true and living
Understand
God,
the cipher. You see the
is
cipher
to
for
show
what it is,
proof
not for what it is,
your
not what it
growth
appears
and
to be,
development
for what it
of
really
everything
is,
that
God.
you do. I'm an extra
Peace, life of law.
I went and got me a $5.50 job. After that, I wound up becoming a security guard in Bronx, Lebanon. They had education. I became a phlebotomist, a AKG technician, a nurse's
True
aide.
120. You could let it
You
go.
understand?
So that's what
And
you
then
want to do.
I wanted to go
Let
to
it
school,
go.
become an
True
LPN.
120.
I become an
You know what I
HIV
mean?
counselor, a social worker.
So do what you do.
We
You know what I'm
can be
saying?
whatever
Let it
we
go.
wanna
You know what I
be.
mean? If you don't want to consume
The
it,
catch
consume
is,
or wear it. That's what you
bring it
do.
back here.
Peace.
I bring back in the days, every.
No, Sadiq. We're not
No,
Muslims
fair.
or
That had
Muslims.
to happen.
No. That's
Right
not our
on
science.
weekend, I brought temper dots, I brought blood pressure machines, I brought all kind of things here. You know how I got the name of the nurse? Wait, I'm gonna tell you, wait. The Earth was here from out of town, and they were doing their own of that. Divine Education Earth, she fell right in front of the door.
Hey, Jermaine, talk about it?
Ajimine, yes, God, pardon me. Thank you for telling me your name. Ajimine. She fell, she planted her hands down. When she planted her hands down, when she got up, y'all, she had hairline fractures on both of her wrists. I told her to move her fingers. She only can move 2 fingers on this hand. On this hand, she only can move 1. That was hairline, because I work in the trauma room. The Earth that got all these degrees from out of town. Oh, let me take your blood pressure. I said, Earth, y'all need to take her to the hospital because she has these fractures. When she came to the rally the next day after the show improved, next day after the show improved, God, she had casts on both arms. They was like, oh, that's Shakim the nurse. That's how I got that name. Word is wrong.
Yes, peace God.
Please God.
Peace to God.
Am I telling you a lie?
No, sir.
Please, Almighty God.
Peace God.
Listen, I'm not trying to take over your class.
No, peace God. Peace God.
We need to add on, let them know that we do what we do, man.
That's
Peace
good.
God. Alright?
Well, I'm glad you, added on
You
to
got me on
something.
tape.
Yeah, I got you.
Oh, no, you gotta take me on this. No, you ain't gotta do it. I know you ain't do me like that.
God, you know what I'm saying?
I know you ain't do me like
It
that.
was live already.
Please, let me continue because
Yes,
I
God.
want to finish that point.
Yeah, alright, please.
Again, I think it's simplistic, it's irrational, and it's very poor knowledge when we criticize what we're wearing though, when people don't even know where their clothes are from. They don't even know how their clothes are made. They don't even know the history that goes into how clothes are made. The other thing is this, somebody was saying, we're gonna have a clothing with European sport and the polo, it's got the horse and everything, it's doing polo and that's European stuff. Polo is not a European sport, by the way. It's a Persian sport, okay? So sometimes we have to look at history and rethink what we think. Things have been appropriated from our people so long that we assume that they belong to them. You know what I mean? And this balance of contradiction and hypocrisy is what the people on the streaming are not getting. We live contradictions. We are not hypocrites. So we live contradictions of dealing with all different types of things that would seem to put us in a place where what we're doing now seems detrimental, and yet it is fruitful, and yet it is learning, and yet it is questioning, right? And so when we look at the ways that we dress, when we look at the things that we eat, these things are ever flowing. These things are ever challenging. So the things that we think and that we have shown and proven to be right and exact now, we would always keep them under the study. They're not at end all topics, right? The thing is that what is the most important way for a 5%er to present themselves? And what type of clothing and what type of wear? No matter what though, there has to be some type of vanity to it. There has to be some type of love for oneself to be able to present yourself in a way that shows all of the love that you have, that people know you and can understand you by two things, by what they see and the name that they hear.
Okay, God, can I add on a little bit? Just a little.
Peace, God.
Just a little bit.
Peace, God.
Okay. All right. I got knowledge, God. I got knowledge way back when, right? There was games, there was clothing, there was all kinds of stuff that goes on, right? Each man is his own reflection of his own self. When he's the own reflection of his own self, if he knows who his own self is, which is the righteous God, whatever he puts on, you know what I'm saying, is a reflection of his own self. So when he walks, talks, and shows, prove who he is, I can be buck-ass naked right now. And I can be that God. So that clothing thing, I don't mean no disrespect or nothing. There's a lot of entities or a lot of people that's making different kinds of clothing. And it says, listen, this is the 5% clothing, this is the blood clothing. The clothes don't make us, God. We make our own self. Who is a righteous God? One who knows who the true and living God and teaches who the true and living God is. God, some days I can walk around like this. You don't see me with nurse's uniform on. You don't see me with suits and ties on. God, to show and prove who you are is your ability to show and prove that Allah is God, always has been, always will be. It's not that, I'm not saying you need to know a whole lot of lessons or nothing else. If you know your lessons, that was your guideline. Your basic foundation is to show and prove that you're not just living the lessons is you. You understand? That's what makes you that said person of that ability, that we are the true and living God. I didn't mean to take over your class, God.
No, peace, God. I appreciate
Peace,
it.
life, yeah. Show and prove my authority by
And I happen to come through.
living. You know what I'm saying? By
I love
living,
you, man.
being
God,
right and exact in
listen,
what I do.
I know you and
Showing
me
and proving,
is the same
God.
person, y'all.
Being
I know
right and
you
exact.
and me is the same
And by
person.
understanding the cipher,
You
how
understand
to
what I'm
add
saying?
on to the cipher.
I'm just adding on to the site.
All right? So yeah, peace, life.
And look,
I see the
I'm
question.
not
I just
taking
want
this
to
over, man.
convolute it, you know, with all that's
This is
going
the
on.
God class page. This is the God class. I love them with all my. Come here, man. Peace, God. This is the God class.
Peace, God.
He's always here, man. You understand? I'm not pulling it over. If you put it on paper or whatever, this is his class. I just felt that I needed to add on, at least to understand the cipher. I'm not taking nothing away.
I appreciate that, God.
Please, God.
They said
You see what I'm
the
saying?
nurse just added on facts.
That's
Peace.
all it is. You hear me, God? I'm not taking nothing away from you, man.
Stated the
No,
facts.
God.
You
I
hear me?
appreciate the add-on, God.
And I got enough respect, and I love my brother enough. What I just said, the average person wouldn't have said, oh, well, I came in and took over his class. No. I'm respecting his class. Pardon me
That's peace.
if I went above and beyond.
That's peace, God.
You see what I'm saying, Al? That's the respect we. Who's my brother? My own self. Peace, Almighty. Come on, man. Don't be looking at me like that.
Peace
Peace is God.
Peace, God.
You hear me, man?
Everything's
Did I
peace,
do
God.
something
No,
wrong?
I'm cycling, God.
If you want to punch me in the face, I can take it.
You a nurse, you heal yourself.
Peace, God.
Yeah, you know, that's what we dealing with.
Love y'all, man.
Yo, peace.
Love y'all,
Yo,
man.
peace, God.
Peace of money, God.
Peace, God.
Yeah, Bill.
I was thinking of the,
Peace.
understanding God degree, in the 1 to 40. It tells what the devil teaches that 85% of the God is a righteous, unseen being that exists everywhere. God, the laws of God, now all of a sudden I'm forgetting now, right? The laws of God, the earth, heaven above is just and true, and there is no unrighteousness in him, but it's not unseen, is seen and heard everywhere, for he's the all-eye seeing. The reason I thought of that is because, you know, we're, in terms of clothes, we're in the business world, we're in the blue-collar world. Some of my summer jobs in the 70s were on a truck when I was young and strong. And I've also been to business establishments trying to interview to get something, and I put on a suit. You can still be
Yeah. I
5%
think,
with a suit on.
I think that,
European suit, Western suit.
yeah, I think that the brother that is saying that, I like that conflict, I like that, you know, refusal to accept things. But at the same time, though, you know, it's wrong. You know what I'm saying? It's wrong. It's not understanding the perspective. You know what I mean? The perspective. You know? But like I said, and just case in point, whoever we criticize, let's make sure that we know exactly what we're talking about. Right?
Before you criticize.
Right? Because a lot of people, you know, if you want to criticize the boots I'm wearing, make sure you're not wearing sandals. You know, with boots always sticking out and stuff. You know what I mean? But the adaptability of the clothing, though, is really key. How you dress, how you, and look, I've been doing martial arts for over half my life. The concepts and the study of ego, letting go, lack of vanity, this concept of letting self go is also the way
Yo,
that the
AG,
Sufic
hit
orders
me
teach.
on at a law school in Mecca at
The way that the
Gmail.
Sufic orders
I
teach
definitely would love to build
about
you. Hit
finding
me there and
God,
send me your information,
and
and
it
you know,
ends
we
up
figure it
being
out from there.
what they
A
call,
law school in
what
Mecca at
European scholars would call, when
gmail.com.
they analyze Sufic orders,
Peace.
they call it a unitive state. So a man would realize that he's God. They would kind of almost dismiss it like the Sufis reach or these particular
Life Allah.
Sufis reach
Today's
the
understand
unitive
the
state.
cipher degree.
They unify with God.
Understand the cipher.
But the reality
Understand
is,
the cipher.
right, is that when we look at all these ideas like the Sufis and others,
Peace.
this concept of letting go, and when we talk about letting go of ego, has to do with also similar to the idea of the poor righteous teacher. It doesn't mean that it doesn't mean that we let go of everything that we have. You can't be a poor righteous teacher if you actually have money. You can't be a poor righteous teacher if you have a collection of whatever it is. That's not what that means. It means that to actually live this out and or to teach and share this, you would be willing to sacrifice anything. And poverty, in this case, would be the willingness to sacrifice to teach this truth. Poor righteous teacher. So even a rich man, if he has always taught this knowledge, he is a poor righteous teacher. He has been willing to sacrifice whatever he's had. That's the meaning of letting go. The meaning of letting go is to get rid of all of the conceptions that you have to see what is truly there. You see? And now, the way that one presents themselves is actually tailored to what? To actually communicate a particular message. Right? Now we look here. Right? If we take anyone in a moment, we could say that they communicate a message that we might find disagreeable or agreeable. It could happen with anything. Right? But if we take the individual and we say, what is the way that they should always communicate themselves visually and then through their name, right? The things that you could hear
Your life
about
alone, that was a
someone
question that
and
one of
see
the
about
brothers
someone without
posed
getting any explanation.
on the
Right?
stream.
Then it
It's
would
one
be
of the
their name
questions
that
that
carries something
so
of
we
history.
addressing the
And it would
question
be their
that was
presentation
posed on.
that would always be what? No matter what, it would have to be clean and sharp, right? And appealing. Let's not forget, right? Who was the father telling us to teach?
The babies.
He's telling us to teach the children, right? And how do you appeal to the children, right? How do you appeal to the children? You appeal to the children in ways and factions that are appealing to the eye, and also righteous enough to share an ideal, right?
Now, real quick, because now I just want to address this. Now, can you equate that and tie that into understanding the cipher? Today's degree.
The way that question comes at me is really whack to me. First of all, I just find it.
Way I actually.
That way of doing it, like.
No reason why, because you know.
I know it's being asked in there, right? So I'm saying this, but I'm saying this first though. When you wake up, you're looking at principles of understanding cipher, because today's mathematics is understanding cipher. When you do New York Times and you do all the builds that fit to print, you are formatting what you were saying into understanding cipher. The truth is that I could have been talking about anything and fit it into whatever mathematics you pick.
Exactly what it does.
So if you ask me, how does that fit into understanding cipher? Well, I'm giving an insight to the cipher of my own dress wear. Like, it's really irrelevant. Before I was building on a degree, on today's degree, right? And about the separation of things, right? But if someone is trying to really contain Sunez, which is a combination of what? This physical reality, right? My black germ and my brown germ, my clothing, right? And you try to separate all that to then get an idea about me, then you just grafted the entire unity and the reality of Sunez, right? And we don't need 600 years, 600 hours, and we certainly don't need 6 minutes, right? We just need less than 6 minutes for that to happen with certain people, right? Because they're trying to separate the presentation of what I'm doing though from the clothing I'm wearing. Even though this clothing is well designed, even though the clothing is well made and it is presentable. We can fit into anything. Like, how long have I been studying this? Right? We could do it to anything because it applies to all things in life though. So we could say that what is an understanding, a revelation of purpose, and I have been bombarded in this room and I feel so constricted. So I've revealed that the purpose of this side of the wall though would be to erect something that could elevate the cipher. So I will understand the cipher by opening the door and extending it. So we could do it and do it all day with all types of things. You know what I mean? So it would be just cleverness of language though to try to fit things to what they should be, right? Instead of now dealing with a real classroom that deals with understanding cipher, would be really taking the questions and the perceived insights that people have and really seeing if they live in a cipher. Because understanding also has to live in ciphers as well. How strong is the understanding, right? How strong is it?
As deep as you research, as deep as you deep into understanding whatever situation it may be.
Right, we would hope and willing to be, right? So does that answer the question? As
Well, I mean,
facetiously and disrespectfully as I could with that.
You know,
But I don't mean to be like that. But we have to be very careful that we're not just learning mathematics and just fitting it to things, because it fits very simple into all things. Because mathematics isn't pieces. They're not Lego pieces. They're actually oftentimes malleable pieces of clay. You know what I'm saying? So when you're using them though, you end up throwing them into things and you think like, wow, what a build that I just had. And you live a life that is as useless and as meaningless and not very, not needing of mathematics anyway. You know what I'm saying? And most of the principles you live out under the guise that you say, I'm the true living God, I deal with supreme mathematics. Well, hell, most of the principles and ethics and morals that you're dealing with that are making you make decisions that are the building blocks of all history, are basically just as pretty much as well spoken as any old Christian on the street. Any old Hindu or Muslim that you meet though, because their religion is pretty old. So they spent a long time though defining principles and morals, not because they want people to elevate and find enlightenment, but just so that way people could consistently not kill themselves and produce product and service for the betterment of the societies that are continuing. So let's not assume that if we could fit mathematics into any type of thing that we're talking about, that it would work out though. can actually say the most vile shit right now, and I'll fit it into understanding cipher. You know?
Well, I mean, just to say, you know, it's
But yeah.
to bring it all the way home, you know, to understand the cipher. We understand that there are people out there with all types of wild questions and different
No,
series.
and that's why I said it like this, because I didn't want him to forget that. Whoever asked that question.
Right. That's Life of Law. That's my brother. You know, Life of Law. And that's our brother, Life of Law. You know, and that is something that, you know, that we have to address as we come into. We see that there's a cipher, and we're including an online aspect of it, and that's something that we got to add on with those. Well, this is a question that they have.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Now, a lot of times, oftentimes, I'll dismiss them. You know what I'm saying? And I learned from Doc Kim, it's like, you know, you interact with them too. Because a lot of times I'll dismiss them like,
the student world is really like a new student in the classroom. You know what I mean?
Right.
But yeah, you know, but that's the way I would have answered it anyway when people ask me to fit it in, because I think that's the problem with it. Remember, we deal with mathematics, we deal with numbers and stuff, so we have and we do born the math. So when we born it, like we add these two numbers up to make it one number, 303. 3 plus 0 is 3. That's an old numerological system of use called the phatic system. So these are ideas of numerology. So we could always get lost into numerological, you know, tricks and schemes and all that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? And for me personally, I abhor the builds where people just see numbers and they're like, oh, it had to be because the number's there. You know what I mean? Just, you know, if you just wanted a fancier way to play lotto, then could have done that. You don't need to ask me questions, you know? But just be very careful in how you deal with the mathematics. These mathematics, and especially when we deal with the mathematics of the day, is to remind ourselves of principles, and that these principles are focused in each day, that is repeating at least almost all of them 12 times a month, which means that these are being repeated and refreshed and revised in your mind all repeatedly, because you're supposed to be plotting an entire history. You see? And so you're remembering these principles and how they link with mathematics, really so you could write your own history, not so you can have a meaning for the day. That's how we learn as students, and that's how we're always challenged, though. But the end-all game, though, is not to have a build on the day's mathematics. The end-all is that you are plotting your entire life mathematically and are seeing the patterns that are repeating themselves and the ones that should be repeating themselves that are not. That's what we're using mathematics for. That's why our calendar repeats itself. That's why we deal with patterns. And that's why it's so important, this type of system of generally mathematics, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. These systems of logic, these systems of recall, these systems of rewind and study what you have done. And did it go according to mathematics? I thought I did something right and it's not working out. When we look back, are you able to go through the degrees and see, like, listen, what did I do here? Did I do this? And see, like, how did your life go? And that's why, again, I say, have your own journal. You know, we need to go learn how to go back and be honest about what we have done. And then, as you go along, you start writing about what you will do. How you plot that.
God, all right. So AG of DITC has a question. There's a 30th. And where I am, there is a 31st. Then did he take it down? So how does that fit? Okay, yeah, wait. Okay, so there's a 30th, and where I'm at, there's a 31st. How does that fit in if we just stick to the rule of building on the day exact?
Because he's all the way out. You know,
he's in Japan. Well, I mean, the way I see it is like, you know, like that's where you are. You know, how you see it.
Yeah, that's where you are. Because like, what happened? like, you know, obviously AG, you know, one of the great MCs ever, has done tons of shows where you just break day and like you end up getting past 12 a.m. too. Like, do you not go, you know, now we're into understanding? You know, like, mutate into the next day. Like, I always take it like, once I wake up, that's the way I'm gonna deal with it. You
Right.
know, I've been in
When the sun
ciphers-
rises, right?
Yeah, but I've been in ciphers like where even I teach this class and then somebody comes in and go, no, cipher God, it's past 12 a.m. so you build on the wrong mathematics and stuff, and I'm like, you know, like the point is that it's useful. And what is most useful? Having consistency of that, you know? So I think it's your own personal sunrise and sundown, you know what I mean? So if you go to bed at 3 a.m., like a lot of times I'll go to bed at 2, 3 a.m., whatever it is, I'm still dealing with that certain mathematics, you know what I'm saying? And then when I wake up the next day, then I charge into the new one. I don't get all technical about it, you know what I'm saying? On that note, you know what I'm saying? Because remember, again, we're doing a loose pattern. We don't have to be so strict with it like that, because that doesn't really change the concepts, you know what I mean? The point is that you have actual principles. Like, how many of us go through mathematics and see, like, I'm going to build on the mathematics, right? Every day. Like, you write this down in your journal. Don't build on like what it means, but build on a principle that you live by, that can be explained as understanding cipher, right? I'll give you a baby one, real easy one, right? I never go into things without knowing what I'm dealing with. That'd be a principle. Wisdom, knowledge would be a reminder of that principle, right? So, like, how do we even have a knowledge of ourselves that deep where we could describe exactly what we are and what we will do and what we're about? The first clue, you've already done that assignment when you pick your name. Because your name is supposed to describe who you are and who you intend to be, right? And if it doesn't do those things, then, well, your name is missing some things, you know what I'm saying? And it may not be missing the actual extra name or a different name. You just need to think about it more. Like, think about what that means more, you know what I mean? Right?
Now, just Allah, he was touching on what we was building on when Sunez went to the bathroom and came in earlier about, because he was saying basically like this is a different class. He says, peace. I think each class is different depending on who is teaching the class. And that's right. Like Sunez has a certain specific teaching style
I think that
versus Dakim. Dakim has another teaching style, as you know.
when I started to teach this class, all the way in 2000, I made sure that I build with everyone that's ever taught, which includes Darkim. Darkim is my big brother in this, you know what I mean? And he was teaching way before I ever thought about it. When I decided to teach, I was trying to see what I could share that would be distinct and useful. So, right, what would be my understanding? Like, what would be useful? Instead of just repeating. Because so many elders were so great, I was like, man, I don't want to like just like be teaching here and then the firstborn princess be like wheel through, you know, because he has his, you know, automated wheelchair and, you know, disrespectfully wheel in and be like, you know, been there, done that, you know, oh, let's play it. You know, these are all things I was thinking, like it'd be a waste of time here. And so I put my life into it, I put my understanding into it, and I put also the pedagogy that I was developing, a different type of pedagogy, you know what I mean? And also a different approach, you know what I mean? A different approach, you know? So, it certainly is different. And for years, I've always had to preface the way I teach as being a little more unorthodox compared to others that you might learn with, you know what I mean? You wouldn't see it, let's say, in contrast with Darkim, because Darkim is very adaptable to nearly everybody in the universe, you know what I mean? So that wouldn't be in, but others are a little bit more rigid, you know? You have a little bit more rigid style in the classroom, you know?
And all of us come from different perspectives anyway.
Yeah,
You get what I'm saying? Everybody see, you might be living out martial arts or hip hop, you know, and I'm
that
you know,
comes into play a lot.
right,
A
right.
lot
And
of the way
I'm living, and I may be living something different, dealing with the videos and however, you know what I'm saying?
Like the gun colleague that be going around taking
Right.
pictures.
And we all, and see him and I, we may be able to connect and build and have similarities. And then, then you have Sunez who's dealing with martial arts and, hip hop and, somebody who may be dealing with like fashion or whatnot. Somebody who maybe even may have been coming out of the nation of Islam or maybe coming out of other said nations. You get what I'm saying? So, it depends on who you're dealing with, and that's where it comes to today's mathematics and understanding the cipher. You know what I'm
Peace.
saying? When you understand the cipher, you see it what it is. That's how you add on. You know.
Mhm.
Yeah, when you go to the Mecca parliaments, as I see it, that's when we got the time from wisdom to God. And you see a lot of gods get up and build, and each one has their own style. Each one teach one according to his knowledge. That can be as simple as the way they move their hands or walk.
Mhm.
But when you sit there and listen, you can get knowledge from everybody that comes up there.
Yeah, peace, Sako. That's right, exact. Everybody has their way.
They teach like the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. They have very different styles.
Right, right.
Yeah, peace to Infinite Mind. Hey, Infinite Mind knows that the way that I was teaching when I first started, the way in the pedagogy that I had to teach it was very. It's funny because the way I teach is so much more calmer. It's much more smoother, I guess, right? But it was much more. It was taken much more abrasively by others, though. But I don't think you could, or at least I know for myself that I wouldn't be able to be sane for all these years, teaching 20 years here, and not be able to do it a little bit differently, and have an approach that is a little bit more calm and stuff like that,
It's definitely different.
Yeah, because it's
It's definitely different.
Different from Kim, right?
Yeah, definitely. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's definitely different. You know.
But that's the beauty of coming around and you getting to see the different brothers that you know what I'm saying, and you get it, and this is how you grow it yourself, because now you get to see a different side of yourself.
If you get to be in this nation, then you should partake in everyone's way of living this. So like, I'm a writer, but when I got a nation, I bought everybody's works. I bought Infinite Al Jamar's publications. I bought Son of Man publication. I bought every plus lesson that Dumar was selling. I was buying everything. I bought every book that Savior of Knowledge was selling, and then I was building with him a lot. And a lot of my pedagogy I learned from him, and I wasn't just stuck on one person. And yet, that was the way I was finding the way I would teach, the way I would write about this, the way I would develop my own plus lessons. Because we have to be. We're not really an add-on to anything though if we're not unique. One of the things in the classroom and in your life that I try to instill is that we're all learning here to be ourselves, which is to create. So part of this though is that you should be taking on something that is just trying some type of new creative process. For now, like if you pick up a journal and start writing about your life, that's creative because no one can tell your lifestyle. No one can tell your story. No one can put down on a page the way you're putting it down. So these are still practices in creativity. So one of the engagements that is lost from people that get knowledge self is that they don't practice creation. They don't practice creating things. They don't practice, well, let me try this, let me try that. They're not doing that. And part of that is because the knowledge base is also drastically reduced. So they're not, let's say like when we talk about book reading, they're not reading an array of different types of things. So then now their mind is not thinking about creating things with a lot of different type of ideas. We should be used to knowledge in all those things. We should be preparing ourselves to knowledge all different type of things, right? And really bombard ourselves. You know what I mean? I always speak about that. You know what I mean? Practice bombarding yourself. Right? See how long can you read a book? Like how long can you read? Have you ever tried that? Like just really burn out your brain. Like just really burn it out. If you're working out though, try some sets to failure. You know what I'm saying? Like it's all these different things. Like you have to test the limits of yourself to see how limitless you are. And you won't find your creativity. You won't find your unique understanding if you don't do those type of things.
Yeah, like keep pushing it, because there are limitations, and the only way to get beyond the limitation is to push the limitation.
Yeah, and I think in the coursework in this classroom, a lot of it is based on that, because I'm not asking you to read just a couple of books. You know what I'm saying? I'm asking you to read a lot of books.
It's like the science of everything in life.
Absolutely,
The science of everything in life.
political education and civilization of Israel. Well, what type of knowledge base would you need to enrich your civilization at all times? It's quite a lot. It's quite a lot. And the thing is, like, let's look at it from the children's perspective, right? You're a parent. No, do you have children?
Yeah.
Kids?
Yeah.
Right? Oh, so you know. If you have kids or not, you're always looking at what you can share with them. And a lot of parents, they make the mistake that they're only parents of children, but you're also a parent of an adult. And no matter what that child that you have, if they're an adult, if they're they do great on their own or everything, no matter what, you'll always be the same set of years older than them. So you'll always be in a position where you have experience that they don't have. So you should always be taking on the benefit of having those extra years and actually accumulating as much information, insight that you can gather. And actually learning how to articulate
I'm not sure what
everything
you're
that you're
asking.
living. Some people don't
Is
know
the
how to
word
articulate
to
the
the
lives
number
that they're living.
inflated?
So
I'm
they don't
not
actually
sure.
come to understanding.
I'm not sure what you
You
mean.
know? So in other words, if you couldn't take the experiences that you had and put them into
Civilization
actual words,
class, universal.
then a lot of times that the
Probably
understanding
just
that
going
might
up
be
some
drawn out
signs for
from
some
it
brothers
isn't going to get drawn.
answering
Because you
random
didn't go through
questions.
those tests to try to put that into
Thanks.
words. You know? All of this here are exercises. You know? They're all exercises. You know? Like, you open your journal the first time, you know what you do first? Say your righteous name, write it down in the book, and then explain it to them. And then challenge yourself. See, like, listen, I should be able to write at least 3 pages about my own name. And look, you can cheat a little bit, write really big, whatever you want to do, you know what I mean? But try to do that, because if you can't talk about yourself, then who can? So all of these things, you know, that sometimes a lot of the teaching here is just lost exercises that people aren't really doing. You know? That's why, like, a lot of the class I've been relating it to Kobe, because a lot of his teachings was just work ethic. Like, for example, in his book Mamba Mentality, which I see it's a great read. You know, it's a short book too. It's just really big because it's got a lot of pictures and it's really designed beautifully. You know, it's a coffee table book. You know, so it's built like that. But he talks about, like, he would do simple things like change the hours of how he would do stuff. So he would work out early in the morning so he could do 3 workouts. And then even have the benefit of taking his kids to school because he did the first workout very early. And then there would be a lot of time between the first workout and then the second, you know what I mean? So when you look at things like that, you look at the
Peace,
ideas
Joseph,
work
yes.
also too by a
Understand the
person
cycle is connected to the
strategizing
30th. Yes, it is.
so
Peace.
if you're not strategizing your life, then you're losing the first step into actually writing your own history.
Peace, are cool.
The first step to writing your own history is to strategize your life. Like, what are the goals that I have? What are the things that I want to do? What are the ways that I should look? And that's why, like, one of my first processes that I give out is what I call the build awareness square. I just called it that, you know, so it stays in people's head. But it was just 5 things to always do the knowledge of yourself before you start saying, like, oh, I have knowledge of self because I know the black man is God. But there were things about you daily that you don't have no idea about. So it'd be like the first thing would be eat. Most people don't know what they eat. So if I asked you what'd you eat on Monday, you'd be like, you know what I mean? Like, what did you eat? Or like everything that you ate today, if you know it, what was in those? And then if you know the ingredients, then the second question would be like, what was the quality of the meals? In other words, the protein levels, fat levels, were they quality fats? Were they complex or simple carbohydrates? Most people don't look at their meals like that. You know, like, I'm not gonna eat that. Like, you know, if the more you learn, the more you can be bougie like that. It's a wonderful thing. Like, you look at things and say, those are simple carbohydrates. I'm not eating that. You know what I mean? Or if you feel a little down and stuff, and you say, listen, it's because I had that. So now your own state of being is not mysterious. You know, because some people may eat something and it's not blatantly bad. Like, it didn't come out like of an orange bag that had 50 cartoon characters on it, so you don't realize that it wasn't so good for you. You know what I mean? But you could eat something that is freshly cooked, freshly made, right? And it just wasn't of the same quality. And then you're not aware of it you don't understand what type of food it was, and so you don't really know what it would be doing to you. So now you try to read, right? I'm getting you guys to read, and now you just keep falling asleep, right? You might not know, it might be the wheat semolina in the type of spaghettis you had, right? It could be all these things. Like you could be, I'm really poor. Why do I fall asleep every time I read? It's like, well, you know, you eat spaghetti and you fell asleep, or you had this type of bread and you fell, you know, like
And it's funny
it's
because
all
you
these
say-
things.
You saying that, and I ate spaghetti before I came over here.
And then now he fell asleep.
Yeah.
Now he's gonna be like, oh, it's a spaghetti. Don't worry about it. Spaghetti. But, so the first thing is eat, and then the second thing is train, because a lot of people, they live their lives, but they don't really have a real goal or mindset of what they expect their body to do. They just live their life and say, my body don't do these things anymore. That is unacceptable. Like to go around and say, listen, I'm older now, so my body don't do what it used to do. No, you can build the body. So like, what do you need it to do? And then you go to you develop some type of strategy, and then you develop some type of goals to actually get your body to do the things that you want it to do.
Joseph is a simple
So
connection.
how will you train?
It's a
And then the
simple
third
connection.
thing was basic. The third and fourth
Three
thing
is
kind of linked together
understanding.
was like, what are you reading and how
And
you
the zero
how
is
do
the
you
cipher.
And what I mean by that is more
We
universal
make it
than just
something by
that. In other
adding
words,
on to it.
what are you aware
So
of
it's
all the
understanding the
different things
cipher.
you do the knowledge to?
To
So
see
like
it for
if you
what
watch
it is
TV
and how
though,
it appears to
it
be.
isn't just that you watch TV, but like
Peace.
are you watching just fun programs that don't have much value, lasting value, like just de-stress, decompress, which is okay? Or do you try to like say, okay, I saw enough of this, let me watch something a little bit more
FOA.
quality value? You know,
Saying,
and I mean that like a lot of
Born
TV
Logic, that's my
videos,
peak. I spent some time when I went out to South Asia. Peace.
And then, and that could be all things, you know, like an actor, so it's not so much the books he's reading. He would write in his journal about the movies he's watching and how he's studying actors and things like that. Now, he'll watch movies totally different than me, and very annoying rewind every 2 seconds way, right? But he's doing analysis of what he is reading, what he is taking in. And if you read, it goes back to the books. If you read the books, are you reading a diversity of books or just one type of book? All these things count. Are you aware of the type of authors you're reading? Right? So are you aware that way when you read them, you don't just say, oh, this a white man wrote this, and then you just toss it aside. No. You can read it and understand the level of bias that will be coming with it. So
at some
you can
point,
extract
you know,
useful things.
when the time comes, I'll add on in that way.
So-
right now, this is my classroom. This is how I add on.
So the read and then also the
Please.
write. And the write, I mean, not just writing, but we're always writing all the time. Usually emails, something like that, social media. How do we speak? You know, all these things come into play with that. So I just bracketed it under write. And how do we change? Like, how do we speak to different peoples? What type of language do we use? You know what I mean? How emotional we are when we speak to different peoples. Like, how do you communicate? And then the last thing I put, because it's always important to me, is how you share. Because we're 5%ers. So how are you sharing them? With yourself and with everyone else, though. It goes back to the first thing I said before. Even streaming, before that other student was even here. Every time, and this is for the streaming, not for YouTube. Every time that we decide to share something, right? Are we deciding how useful it is? And if it is useful, are we sharing it to make things easier for us or to make things easier for them? Are we teaching everyone that the black man is God so that it is less awkward when we walk down the street, or so that people could really use this valuable knowledge? Right? And we're making that distinction, you know? Because that's, you know, like when you watch the Wu-Tang American Saga series, that was the biggest, people go, oh, our flag isn't like that and this and that. That wasn't the biggest difference that they did differently than what we actually are. The biggest difference was that we aren't podium pitchers. You know what I mean? We don't stand by desks and we don't stand by podiums and we don't stand in ciphers and yell out to strangers about what we teach. It's not how we do it. And when people are doing it like that, it's not really what we do. You know? We don't stand in the street and go, Joe, the black man is God. You need to come get this knowledge. You know? Like if I get here early, nobody's here, I get out there and I start recruiting. Come on down! You know, free beer and the talking frog. I'm thinking of that cartoon, right? And see the singing frog, you know what I mean? But it is much different because the father didn't do that though. He was very selective, you know? He selected certain. He said, come over here, look, I see what you're doing. So, how are you sharing though? You know what I mean? And because you can, if you want to go really deep into your mentality, you find out a lot about your own mentality and your own personality sometimes, not by just, because sometimes you just think you are a good person or you're doing good. And then somebody comes along and shows you you're an asshole, right? One of the best ways to see how you're doing and self-evaluate yourself though, is to see like, what is the reasoning behind why you're even sharing that? You know what I mean? A lot of times it's really just to be known as that person. A lot of people teach that the black man is God in ciphers that will not get that the black man is God, just so they can be acknowledged that they're the one that says that they're God and high and mighty over everyone else in the room. And now it is firmly established.
Now, is that really understanding the cipher? That's, oof.
Yeah.
That's like teaching,
That's like
teaching truth out of season, basically.
Yeah, you know what I mean? But it's definitely fitting their seasons. You know what I mean?
The
Yeah,
layers.
that would be more like true vanity though.
Yeah.
Not just rocking
So,
old polo.
I'm in the season of teaching, but if you're not, that's on you. That's on you, G.
Yeah.
The layers.
Because that's worse than having clothing with the Persian sport, the old Persian sport. But by the way, this is a side note about the polo thing. If you ever talk to especially lowlives, their knowledge of the history of clothing, aside from just like what pieces and things like that, but the actual how clothing is stitched, where it came from, what other people did, how they made it, and their history of those individuals, they're very well learned though. You know, it's not like people that just know like, oh yeah, Ralph is a good guy, so we mess with him and things like that. And Tommy, we don't like him that much. It's not really a thing. They are
So they're really, okay.
Yeah, so you know, the deeper you go, like real lowlifes, not just people that was just.
I would like to meet some of them, man. You know what I'm saying? Because I mean, you as you know me, I'm critical of
course,
of low lives, and not that I got anything against them. It's just that like I sometimes relate to the brother, like where he says, like, wait a minute, Ralph Lauren, man, like this is a Caucasian man, and then what is he adding on to you? But
now you know what's interesting, right? We teach all the human families, right? Now go look at Ralph Lauren though, and what he was advocating, or more like Ralph Lauren's history is non-advocating, and how it had peaks of certain things that seem to be righteous and things like that, like first black models, things like that, and then see how he advocates for all of humanity, right? Now as compared to then.
You say he didn't.
I'm saying it wasn't as outright and forthright
right
as it is now. So when people talk about the low lives and their impact, they've impacted somebody that is one of the most famous designers, clothing designers that ever lived. You know what I mean?
So in turn, you're saying
not in a negative sense. I'm talking about in a really positive sense. And all you have to do is watch the HBO documentary. That's what
I got to try to.
Watch Barry Ralph, and you'll see exactly what I mean.
I didn't see that. So you're saying that basically he influenced the culture, and the culture in turn influenced him. Please, God.
I didn't know y'all was doing this. What is exactly, I mean, you say low life.
Right. Real quick, the low lives were a boosting crew. They were stealing polo to feed themselves, right? And then it became a fashion crew where now it wasn't just feeding themselves by boosting and selling the clothes, but then having the best clothes and being the most well-dressed, and it became larger than life. It led to greed.
I think I saw that in the hip hop documentary.
Yeah. They did one too. Yeah,
when they was all wearing polo, and they took that.
And the
picture
Complex,
there.
Complex did a documentary too. I forgot the horsepower, right? And but like I said before, by the late 90s, Thurston Howard was one of the founders. He decided to go further with it and turn it into an organization and gear it towards an organization that would be based on fashion, but then also all of the other pursuits of hip hop.
Who are these people? I learned what boosting was from a young lady, but anyway, who are these people doing this boosting? I mean,
the low lives.
There's black and brown people in Brooklyn, you know what I mean?
Okay, all right, regular.
Yeah, it's just black and brown brothers that was there, you know what I mean? And some of them were 5%. Some of them, like, the one who got me into low lives, Rakim Supreme Shabazz, is 5%.
The rapper, Rakim?
No, not Rakim, the rapper. Rakim Supreme Shabazz who was known as Rudy Lowe. But the thing about it though is that to turn it into a more positive function was to make it an organization based on fashion, but also all of the other hip hop pursuits, the music, the graffiti, whatever it was that people were doing, because Thurston Howell was a good advocate, great advocate for that, and the ideal advocate as well, because he did nearly every element of hip hop that existed. So as that ballooned and as the music became more popular, by this decade, the entire underground of hip hop is filled with low life MCs. And as they started to flood the market with more products, more music, more events that were really fashion events and not boosting events, right? Not boosting, expeditions, but actual fashion events that
True 120. Sometimes it comes down
that
to
just
personal
enjoy the
choice.
culture, go out and watch,
What do you want to
engage
wear?
with, and just watch the way people
Can't tell
do
me
things,
what I want to wear.
right?
How
So,
I wear it. What you want to wear?
so at the same time though, once that happened, it really ballooned and it was able to absorb people that just are doing things in hip hop culture, arts, and music, and now I would be one of those people. You know what I mean? Because I wasn't boosting any of that stuff. I wasn't doing any of that.
Did you buy the boosters when they came to the block?
What?
Did you buy like the booster stuff when they came back from the block from the boosting?
No, I never wore polo because I wasn't low life and I felt like it wasn't a thing to wear. You know what I mean? I only had when I was in college, I only had 2 polo sweaters. So it was more like Raekwon and Cream. Same damn low. It was my favorite sweater too. But
Right. I mean, I had a few items here and there, but I never was like a
my clothing,
big, fan.
for me, clothing as far as hip hop and as far as the way I present myself was always in the hip hop vein, which low lives adhere to as well. It was always about wearing something that expresses what I'm about. So when I started to do the martial arts, if you actually see pictures of me, mostly every other time you see me dressed in the 2000s when I was first getting into martial arts, I'm wearing kung fu gis. That's the shirts with the frog buttons. They wear in the kung fu's.
Like the Bruce Lee shirt.
Yeah, those are gis, and they have frog buttons on them. I was wearing that every day. Infinite Mind knows. That's all we wore. We wore different color frog button shirts. You know what I mean? And that's all we was wearing. Things that said like, "Yo, we're martial artists. We do this," and we was engaging in that lifestyle. You know what I mean? So as and just being a grown up, going to corporate world, going to these different worlds, and then doing so many things with low life artists and all that stuff, covering them for so many years, then what I did, I started to wear more polo just as it was adaptable to all the ciphers I was going to. You know what I mean? So I was able to wear this for work, I was able to wear it for that. You know what I mean? But yeah, so that's how that bubbled, you know what I mean?
Keep in mind.
Peace and God.
Does that answer the question? I hope it answered the question to the person. But that's what the low life is, and now what it is. So if you look up low life, you would expect to see somebody doing something in hip hop arts and culture, not just like crime pages. You know what I mean? And see what's going on there.
Yeah, Ricard said, I remember slick back hair and Hector Lavoe's suit Sunez.
Wait a minute. Hector Lavoe's Sunez has never been retired though.
He's never been retired.
Never been retired though. It's always that cantante del cantante.
Oh, yeah.
I don't even know what a tie is, and all my dress shirts have the 3 top buttons are never buttoned.
Wow.
That's always the case though. We always got to wear Hector Lavoe style.
You remember, like the old school, you remember like, I'm not an expert, but, Breakout and Baron, they have Sha-Rock and.
Yeah.
Flash.
And I was saying that like the way I've always dressed was always very hip hop influenced. Like in the Bronx, is really where you start to see the nature of it. And that what I mean is like you had to wear things and patch it up and fix your clothing to show what you're about. Low lives didn't do that in the beginning because they were boosted clothes that nobody had. So if you had the horse, it didn't represent bouginess. It represented like they're the only ones that have that. You know what I mean? And they get to wear quality clothes, and it's a form of rebellion. And has a lot of the attributes that hip hop was already advocating in the Bronx because it's rebellious, and we're advocating something that we can have the best of things and we can't be constricted. Of course, it's not being gotten in the best of ways, and certainly not in the most righteous ways. But that's not all of the roots of hip hop either. You know what I'm saying? Right? It's not all of the roots of hip hop. The point we're talking about rebellion. We're not talking about a righteous revolution and stuff. You know what I mean? But that's the history with that. You know what I mean? And it intersects with a lot of 5%ers, because a lot of 5%ers are they were in that culture. You know what I mean? And some of them don't advocate it anymore, they don't do it anymore, or they still do, you know? Me, I chose too when I was invited to be in that cipher as an honor, because I'm in the arts and culture of what they advocate. You know what I mean? So if we bring positivity to any cipher we bring to, then it can only be better.
You teach martial arts here?
I don't teach, for me personally, I don't teach martial arts here. I teach it to select individuals as I go along with the students. To select students that I feel could really learn or show that they can learn. You know? Yeah. Yeah, but I don't teach it.
You know, before I said that though, right? Because I don't understand where he coming from, right? But in Mecca, it was a little more different.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
You know, because we had A.J. Lester's, we had House of Plumfield, we had British Walkers, you know, and most of the people who wore that type of outfit was drug dealers or hustlers. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not talking about, you know, little petty hustlers. I'm talking about hustlers that was robbing from a condominium aspect, where they had $10,000 to go in and rent a condominium and put an ad in the paper and solicit people like that. You know what I'm saying? Those who talk about some folks. We call them convicts or grabbers. You know what I'm saying? Those type of hustlers. You know?
Yeah, indeed, God. Let me, I want to address something that True said, because he said something that isn't really true. How ironic. He said, are we low lives or gods? I was taught that what we teach supreme mathematics, supreme wisdom. Actually, we don't. We teach 120. Referring to this crew has nothing to do with math, but the God is speaking is hip hop fashion crew. See, this is the constriction of the robot nature. We are 5%. We teach the 85%. This doesn't live in here. Like, you won't build in here and I go, yo, that was incredible, that build. And then you go out there and none of it teaches anybody. Because it was so high and over people's heads that no one gets it, and now you're completely useless to everybody. So I could teach you these things so you can learn. We could go through quantum mechanics and all that stuff and know why all these things happen. But the young brother on the street that just wants to know some shit, though, what are you going to say to him, though? He said that the brother on there, his name is True, he's saying the most untrue stuff. He's talking about, like, we don't teach this, we don't teach that. We teach how to live out our reality as the creators of the universe out of doors. And all of the first students of this knowledge of self are brothers that were out of doors. They weren't indoors. They didn't go, the father didn't go, let's take a trip to City College. And I'm going to put a poll for GPA. If your GPA is above 3.5, you're going to get the knowledge. You know what I mean? And also this credit card, right? He didn't do that. He stayed in this neighborhood and he was teaching people that Muslims didn't go after. He was teaching people that militants couldn't get to. None of those people. So the point is that I'm not saying he took a more valuable student, because the person that's going to college, the person that was this, they all are people and they all are valued. But what I'm saying is, though, is that he had a way to teach something that is extremely difficult to teach. I think the most hardest thing to teach is to go outside and teach someone that there's no mystery God. You're the true and living God. I don't care what you're teaching, though. I've taught a lot of hard subjects. That's the hardest one. And then you go out there, when you talk about, oh, he's just teaching about what he's doing in hip-hop. What the hell do you think I've been doing in hip-hop? Every single piece I've written, every single idea I've written, every single creative work that I've made has been in some way to teach people to gear toward the understanding and the insight that I have as a writer going into it. Which is what? This knowledge of self. You know what I mean?
That's true.
if hip hop is a form of expression that we have, then wouldn't we use that form of expression to actually share our actual ideas and thoughts?
Yes.
That's what you're supposed to be able to do once you leave this classroom. I'm not saying everybody here is gonna do hip hop shit. But you go out there and you do the thing that you love to do, and you can do it in such a way where you can adapt your understanding into whatever field of engagement you're doing. That was the point. You know what I'm saying?
Be respectful
And,
of something
and whichever way you
on
could
the law.
relate it.
Right, on
Yeah.
a large scale, because how small it may be.
That's right. That's right. Well, what I'm saying is like, we're being so rigid to say like, oh, we don't do this, we don't do that, that we're not even with the people on average things. And I'm saying that from a person that if people know me and they know of me, I live a lifestyle that is considered extremely rigid. You know what I'm saying? So I go out there, I live a vegan lifestyle, I do this, I don't drink, I don't smoke and stuff like that, and yet I'm still able to appeal and speak to people on many different levels. Well, for me, it would be on that level of a lot of times hip hop. Because that's a level that I'm able to reach people on that level. Other people are able to reach people on different levels of what they do, you know? Some people, they go, look, we don't need sport and play. They told us not to do sport and play. Sports is a waste of time. Man, how many people were taught on the basketball court? You know what I'm saying? How many people were taught, like, how to have the ferocity to continue to work and compete? And they said, yo, where do you get that drive from? Or like, just to be athletic and things like that. And, you know, you're not an NBA, but you keep up and everything. Nah, you know, I keep youthful because I keep focused and disciplined because I got the knowledge of myself. And then boom, now you got, you know what I'm saying? There's a different way that we move, and we move around in all the cultures and all the arts.
There was, I might have seen a picture up here some years ago. There was a guard who used to play for, UConn, God Shamgar.
Yeah.
And,
They got, if Mecca mentioned him,
Yeah.
as one of the Kobe's early teachers, yeah.
Oh, okay, I didn't know you were talking about him, okay. And,
That's what we were talking about, yeah.
And Carmelo, I think his brother was, 5% or something, he's from Redwood.
Hold that for a second, please.
And
That, yeah. See, you put your hand now. You gotta move your hand. Look, hold on. That's it. Oh, okay. There you go.
yeah, because the camera's on the other side.
All right. You see, you can kind of relax your arm. You ain't gotta like, there you go. Bang. Now you're doing it with skill, man. There you go.
But yeah, like there's people in all walks of life, and who's to say that one's way of life, or their job, or what they do for a living, is completely useless.
Right.
You know what I mean? Again, our people, one of the few ways that we can express ourselves is through the arts and through sports, the athletics, the arts, and we've been able to do that. I don't think it's one thing to throw it away and act like, well, beyond that, let's move on to something else. That's stupid. I think that doesn't make sense. You know what I mean? Some people won't. That won't be their thing, and they don't appeal to it. But other people do. You know what I'm saying? Other people do. Right?
Well, I've seen it heard everywhere, really, in every,
Yeah, everywhere, you know? And again, that has to do with the contradictions of things, right? The contradictions of things, you know? But, did any of you have a question about anything? I don't even know what time it is.
It's 9. Yeah, it's 9.
Okay, so we have some time.
9:38.
I end here at 10. Let me see what.
I don't have my glasses on, so I can't really. You reading the questions, Sunez?
Yeah, I'm looking, yeah.
Okay.
It says here, the yellow seat is always asked why whenever one is building because he has to make it clear. I would hope that people ask the knowledge and wisdom seat too.
That's peace. I appreciate it.
I act like I didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah, you had your hand in front of the joint, like, man, yo, but I appreciated that. That was good. But you did your thing. Appreciate it. What is refinement? Refinement is to clean up.
I don't know if he's leading the witness here though and asking that.
Yeah, you know.
Yeah, God, what I wanted to ask,
Yeah.
was about that lesson that I was asking about, that lesson I was asking before when they were saying that Yakub had other rules and regulations, which I
Yeah, you know, we went into other things. I didn't get to segue into that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
The more you learn about, if you read, you have to reconstruct everything and try to reconstruct the society that Yakub built there, and how it could survive and all like that. You know what I mean? When you do that, you start to see that other things had to be in play for it to happen. You know what I mean? Other things and a lot of that is you're learning by analyzing what you do have and looking and metaphorizing and seeing how it fits in today's world. You know what I mean? So when I say other rules and regulations, a lot of that has to do with your understanding and how you see today's society and how you see that it continues some of the negative separation and how it fulfills that. See, when we look at societies, one of the reasons that you can hide devilishment among societies, especially when they get larger, is because societies are based on working institutions that interlock. And if you know how, if the person that knows more information about how each institution works and how they engage with each other, the more powerful he is. Because people that work in each institution don't always know how each other works. That's why when we look at politicians are clever with masterminding the people. See that? See what I did there? Masterminding the people. I made it a negative on purpose, right? Born masterminding the people.
Oh man.
I had to do it. I made it a word. Let's go back.
Let's go back. Come on.
So now politicians, when they have a way of born masterminding the people to go into a certain direction, what they do is that they are privy and know the way institutions interlock that we are not. So you may be in enforcement of the people, protection of the people, what we would call police. I don't want to call it that because they don't do that. You're the serve and protect entity. You're the education, right? They are, let's say, fire and protect the people from hazardous things. You would know. That politician is supposed to know how they interact, so he would keep a harmony between them and make sure the people get a proper dose of all of that, and that everything is working for the humanity of the people, right? The people that know more about those ways of interlocking, they can 10% more. You know what I mean? And the way that they work, though, is one of the keys when we talk about rules and regulations. See? And I bring that up because it's one of the ways to show that there's other rules and regulations. You know what I mean?
Well, example, like that secret society or the Illuminati.
You know, I hate all the Illuminati stuff because, first off, white folk or anyone that's ruling, like they decide major policy that trickles down and affects everyone, they actually have to gather in a room and talk. They actually have to talk. They actually have to conspire to make these things happen. You know what I'm saying? And a lot of times it's really made up of when we talk about like how it's some grand thing and then they have ritualized it, you know what I'm saying? Like we have we have done this and we have burned the candles on this, select 666 diagram thing and pentagrams and all this kind of stuff. What we end up doing though is that we end up making the oppressor so much more grander than they actually are. When in reality, if we actually knew what the oppressor's job was, it would be to bloodsuck us without killing us. That's really the goal. It's really a hard job. No? You gotta give it up to them. You know? Their job is to bloodsuck us, but not suck us all the way dry. You know what I'm saying?
Enough so that we can produce
so
more
we
for
can
them.
replenish and then, suck us up. But if they, right? And the truth is, if we look at the planet Earth, for example, they failed miserably. So we put all this grandiose things like, as if it was their intention to destroy this whole thing. No, they don't know how to do it. Partly because it isn't righteous. It doesn't lead to mathematics progressively, meaning adding forward. So it always was going to end up this way. But we put them on a pedestal when we make it like they have these grand schemes. And then every time a black man is building, and he happens to go away, return to the essence via tragedy or just natural causes, we always have to say, oh, look, he was about to start everything, you know what I mean? Oh, they stopped him. Or, and then the ones that aren't doing shit and just doing surface building on the grand scale, what I call Andrew Carnegie, and they're buying libraries for everybody after they robber baron the whole world, they get iconicized because they throw wonderful, you know, pennies to the public. And then people that are really building, if they take them away, what people don't get is that people that build on a large scale, oftentimes they're their own demise. Because it takes a lot of energy to do that. You know what I'm saying? It takes a lot of energy to do that. And you would not Illuminati cause problems. They're challenging the structure of the way people live daily lives. So it just conflicts with the regular average 10%er in your local hood. Just average. It just would collide with big business. And we make a big grandiose reality about the oppressor, and all the oppressor did was maximize how he would oppress, maximize his profit, and made it larger. So he just basically did this all on a larger scale. That's all he did. So it seems more grand and stuff, right? But that whole Illuminati stuff I really hate it because it makes it like you turn the oppressor, you turn the white man into the 24th scientist.
Like you're
know?
giving them power.
Yeah, like he's the 24th scientist while we're here. Like
He's the supreme being.
there's a 24th scientist, and we got 6 scientists right now during the 6,000 years. They have 6 scientists. You know?
So I mean, we have a comic book version, or some say we. The 85% has a comic book version of the 85 of God, as well as a comic book version of the oppressor.
And what's negative about that is that their comic book version of the devil is more real to them. He's way more powerful. He's doing things directly to you. You know? And when you do that on a level, though, you do exactly what religion expects you to do. You know, to me, religion is that glass ceiling. After you've done all you could, you don't continue to search. You say, I've done all I can. It's in God's hands. You know what I mean? Right. And now you stop questioning. You stop searching for possibilities, you know, and probabilities of what could be done and all that. You stop searching, right? Because you have an answer. You have a consistent answer. I do all I can, so now it's based on feeling. If I felt I did all I can, then I stop. That fluctuates like hell. But it seems to have a consistency, right? And then now, you know, the devil has no real barrier in your mind. You know, he can do everything. He owns everything, you know? Then one good thing happens, and God works in mysterious ways.
Right.
They've taken it so far now.
Children are dying every day. You know? The bus comes on time, so, oh, God works in mysterious ways. It's ridiculous.
Oh, thank God.
It's kind of corny, you know what I mean? Or like all the people that won Grammys, though. They said, oh, look, I thank God for this stuff. And he didn't make that shit.
I want to thank my Lord and Savior.
You don't need a mystery God to make music. That shit is.
That's all people.
He wasn't in the studio with you.
To make music that lucky. Yeah. Right? To catch the right jingle.
I'm retired now, but I worked in a lot of high schools over the last 20 years, and the youth for years, they've been, you know, it's almost like it's just a cliche that we've touched on already. They say, oh, Jay-Z's Illuminati. I've been hearing that for like 6.
It goes right back to it being I mean, he couldn't have made the success. He couldn't have did it without them.
He gets both, like they iconicize him or they demonize him.
These are children, so these are 16-year-olds who can't break down. As far as I know.
I would think with Jay-Z, with the things he's done, they don't know how to properly demonize him as he should be. Right?
Hey, don't talk to this dude about Jay-Z. He's biased.
I'm biased to billionaires.
Huh?
I'm biased to all billionaires.
Well, you shouldn't be. You can't have a broke revolution. Peace to the gods.
What revolution happened with a billionaire?
Huh?
What revolution happened with
Well, you act like the shit is over with. Is he Kobe Bryant?
See, there you go. But now you made Jay-Z or the upcoming billionaire the next mystery guy. When we used to get to that billionaire, we used to go be good. I was waiting.
Man.
I'm sitting by the door here. I'm the spook waiting for the other spook. Right? Will he make $1 billion? Will they do something?
Well, it remains to be seen. Whether you want to, it only becomes a mystery if you're waiting on him. I ain't waiting for nobody. It's up to him. But if we project it out in the universe, motherfucker, you wore our flag, didn't you?
So then he becomes a politician then.
And
Projecting our desires, we project our desires upon him in a way that he did not accumulate his wealth. Because he certainly didn't accumulate his wealth or honoring the integrity of hip hop 100%.
And that's why I say you're biased against him.
Listen, talk to Sauce Money.
Well, what about source money?
Right, he just was recently, he's recently spoke about the hypocrisy of Diddy and Jay-Z, right?
Well, I'm not up in that, so I can't have a battle of wits with you because currently I'm an unknown person.
Alright, so I win, I get the checks.
Yes, you win.
Until next time.
But the way I look at it is, we do need the politicians. I mean, look at how Rastafari is organized.
Yeah, no, I didn't say politicians, honestly, I said we don't need the robber barons.
But who said he's a robber?
We don't need the Andrew Carnegies though, that build libraries at the end.
Well, I mean, but then it would be the libraries.
So after you blood suck
Would've made
all
a
the people, like now, let's go make a library. Let's.
Yeah, that's Andrew Carnegie's life though, and that's the model, you know what I mean? And see, Andrew Carnegie gets so much credit, but it doesn't point out his good, it points out that how horrible the society was, that it didn't have libraries already for the populace.
And also the fact that the Nobel Peace Prize was made by a dude who was a warmonger, basically. And the only reason why the Nobel Peace Prize was created was because they accidentally thought he died and ran an obituary about him. And when he saw how people were going to remember him, he wanted to change that perception. So a person who was known for war attached his name to the Peace Prize. Instant cleansing of karma.
And I'm telling you, certain rappers turned mold jewels are doing the same thing.
Well, then we need to call him out. I mean, the Black Panthers just...
I do, you keep saying not to.
No, I mean, calling him out like that is one thing. Being backstage and seeing him and Tata and be like, yo, we need some bread. You wore our flag. I mean, we need some royalties. I mean, this is not how the industry operates. Where's our royalties then? Where's our points? I mean, you got $1 billion now. It's a tax write-off for you to give us $500,000. It's a tax write-off. It ain't even gonna cost you nothing. It'll help you to give us money.
No, hopefully he's watching.
Well, I'm sure if he's not watching, somebody, he's not watching everything, but there's people amongst him, and he should be watching this, considering I've looked him in his eyes and looked me in his. I think that came out wrong. We've looked each other in the eye. And I don't know, maybe I should apologize to Jana Fleischman. I'm gonna put that out there. I didn't mean to hog your press junkie, but everybody else was with it. But when I saw you with Russell Simmons when they were making Jay-Z the president, and I came up to you and I'm like, hi, I'm such and such. Like, I know who you are. I remembered, so I hope there's no bad blood. I apologize. I'm putting it out there. It's the whole internet. I apologize to Jenna Fleischman if I threw off your rhythm or threw off your whatever you were doing with the press junket and dominating the table. But the other journalists were very fine with it when you tried to redirect. So it is what it is. Let's move on. I love you. But as I was saying about we need the politicians, look at how the Rastafarians are organized. They have their priesthood in the Bobo Shanti. They have their warriors in the Nyabingi. But they have their politicians in the 12 tribes. What do you think of that model?
I don't see anything wrong with that.
Yeah, I just said we just need to organize better, organize ourselves better, and address those challenges.
You're talking about the women, we women organized to have power over the politicians.
And that's the problem, organizing. To me, it seems like organization is a curse word, especially in this nation.
Yeah, I agree with you on that.
It's like you saying
No. I just think that there are individual ciphers that we need to organize, because you can't do it with everybody, because not everybody sees it the same way. You know what I'm saying? So you and I have a common cause. We unite on that common cause, and we bring forth a determined idea in which is a goal, and make it happen. Whereas other people they're gonna criticize it and try to tear it down, and we just build and then show and prove. And tell them shut the fuck up.
Lead by example.
Well, that's
what is that? What is that? Reverend leadership. I think that's the model. It's called Reverend leadership. Mm-hmm. Jay-Z, when he wore the medallion, I defended it. The same as with Carmelo, but Carmelo, he got his bona fides. But
he got his what?
Bona fides. That's what they call, somebody can vouch for. Who knows you?
Well, BLO was telling me that Carmelo Anthony had knowledge of self.
Mm-hmm. But even Jay-Z wearing it, I remember when Wu-Tang first came out, and they were, bringing the flag. Lost Shaw was leaning on the broom because he used to sweep the, take care of the school. He used to be standing by the door, leaning on the broom, doing the knowledge, and he was like, I say, put the flag on and let it go around the world with it, because when they took that flag, just that flag, the basic communication form is semiotic sounds and symbols. Even babies can recognize and interpret signs and symbols. So even if he doesn't have the knowledge itself to go along with it, even if he didn't have his 120 on capital today's mathematics, the fact that he had that symbol on a person of his prominence projected ours, that's like the flag on a mountainside. And it's up to us to go behind and do the teaching. That was a teaching moment. Instead of people trying to get stripes by bombing him, like when RZA came to the fucking show and prove, and people like, trying to bomb on him. Like they're trying to get points. No, you ain't supposed to be bombing on them. Then that's one reason they don't fuck with us no more. They want to come around. They want to deal with the bullshit. A petty motherfuckers trying to get points by bombing you.
I agree with you. I don't put Jay-Z in the same context.
I didn't put him in the same context either. I said the flag that he was wearing projected that symbol and took it to places that we can't go. And that's what the Lost Shaw was saying.
I get that, yeah, but in the sense of an individual that has been a robber baron in the industry that he comes out of.
So where's the Andrew Carnegie? You were our flag. Where's
I didn't say that I respect Andrew Carnegie anyway. I don't bear witness that a white man put libraries in New York and that's why we know how to fucking read.
No, I mean, I think people learned how to read before the libraries.
Right, you know what I mean? And have access to books and stuff like that. I'm not putting so much on that, you know what I'm saying? So the same with Jay-Z, like, it doesn't absolve him from the career that he had and the career that I saw that was filled with like 10%.
Yeah, see, even with him wearing a flag, like he created a lot of momentum behind that.
And what happened with it?
No, but do the knowledge. What I'm saying though, he created a momentum with it, and then took it off, gave it to somebody else, and went and made whatever money he made off of that momentum, and never looked back. You know what I'm saying? He never came back in.
That's because people don't hold people accountable. They're too busy looking.
This is what I'm saying. Like this is where we gotta be. Be more on point with us being accountable.
This discussion is being projected into the instance, and Jay-Z himself might not have seen this video, but one of his Rock Nation soldiers is seeing it. But you also don't know what has happened to him since then. He went to Jamaica. He went with the Marleys. You don't know what might have happened, what kind of conversion might have occurred. Seeing as Nas.
Yeah, I agree with Saku. Teach more. That's what it comes down to, teaching.
Maybe it ain't his role to teach.
No. I'm not talking about him. I'm talking about us in terms of like what, because we're the ones who are the custodians of this knowledge.
If you listen to what he's saying in his songs, to me, and of course, we're always gonna have our own. It takes two sides of the coin. I'm the head, he's gonna be the tails. And both of those sides are valid and come to us coming to a informed, right, and exact conclusion. So I appreciate the shit out of your perspective, but I'm gonna have mine. And I appreciate you shooting holes in my perspective, as I will shoot holes in yours as much as I can, because I know you're bulletproof. But it's like I think that, as he said in one of his songs on the 444 album, the more he gets to see the real him. Like, I think that he wanted a certain
threshold. You mean the song about when he was talking about
I respect Jimmy Iovine, but even he.
I remember the song when he was missing the old Marcy, and it's funny because he misses the old Marcy, but he gentrified it and helped gentrify it.
You see, he's completely missing the point I'm making.
I know, he's being an asshole.
No, but you're making your point. Yeah. But my whole thing is to get it back, refocus on.
No. He's not our nation. That's the thing, because we're the custodians. He's not our nation.
He's not our nation.
Right.
So what? He's not a part of our club. But is he original man? Yes or no?
Yeah, I say that.
What is the first degree of the 1 to 10?
Who's the original man? Right. The Asiatic black man making on the planet for civilization, God of the universe.
Does it say except Jay-Z on it?
No, I'm not saying that. No.
So he might not be a part of this particular club, but he is an original man, and therefore, I think, going and looking at his music where he reveals himself, I respect Jimmy Iovine, but even Jimmy Iovine, I respect the Elohim. He talk about when the more power he gets, the more they're afraid of the real me. I think, or something like that, I'm paraphrasing. I think, and this is my theory, and of course it might be another mystery because it remains to be seen, that he wanted to stockpile a certain amount of money before he did everything.
But that's what
to me,
he's saying.
The real reason why I even thought he was revolutionary, to put it in context, was off of the All I Need single, not single song on the Blueprint. And even then, even though KRS-One already had a blueprint, like as Nas skillfully pointed out, that was his blueprint. And why was it blue? ROC. Anyway, blue is fire. No, blue is water. Blue is cool. Red is fire. Fire for the perimeter. What did Musa do when he was with Muslim Savages? What did he do?
Yeah, but I think you're Illuminating him in the positive way, because it's like,
Well, I mean, everybody.
it's over symbolizing him. You know what I mean?
But I didn't even finish the point for you to attack you.
Okay.
I think that he was stacking a certain amount of money before he made the moves he makes. And I'm willing that that's what happens. That he wanted to establish, when you, listen, if you just have $100 billion and they can shoot your helicopter out of the air. If you have $1 billion or $2 billion or $3 billion, then you can buy F-14s. You know what I'm saying? The more money you have in this game, it's sort of like, even when you go to Grand Theft Auto or whatever, or those video games, the more money you get, the more stuff you get, the stronger your armor you can get. But if you try to go up against someone stronger, like people who've been blood sucking for 500 years, they have all of the capital. You stepping on this Monopoly board with somebody who already got Boardwalk and Park Place, you got his ball to gas.
That I get. You know, I just don't. I haven't seen a billionaire in the history of study that I have that has gotten it righteously. And if you had to ask me, I don't think that he got
Behind
it
every great fortune lies an even greater crime. I know.
Yeah. So I can't advocate it. The person I am, I can't advocate it, and I can't expect it.
And the person I am can say, "Show me the money."
We've been waiting for him to be righteous or start the revolution. You a little bit longer, but everybody since he did a song with Dead Prez, and been sitting down waiting for that.
But actually, mine goes back to All I Need.
Yeah, I know.
When he said,
that's what I said years ago.
Set fire to your empire, yes, Aya. To me, that was a subliminal, because he's referring to Rastafari with the yes, Aya, set fire to your empire.
I get that, but he's an adaptive artist, though. So he's really good at taking people's shit and everything that
All
sounds
good artists are adaptive artists.
Yeah, but he's overly adaptive.
Picasso
We're
said,
quotables.
Picasso said good artists borrow great artists.
I agree, Saku. All of them are entertainers. They all entertainers.
Much more well versed in the rap thing than me, but the only album I have of his is Blueprint that you mentioned. Did he say in there one of the jams he said God MC?
God MC, Jehovah.
Yeah.
And you know, that's funny, even himself called himself Jehovah.
Yeah.
Jehovah bought us,
By
Jehovah, and he bought us Yeezy, Cheesy, and JC, J. Cole.
He said, wait, I can see Sunez in the corner of my eye. I can see him in the corner. Yo, man, like, nah, man.
Simple.
Whoa, man.
Truth. The clear blood sucking he did when he was running Def Jam. You know what I mean? That's what you need. The gentrification that he clearly did when he was with the Brooklyn Nets, like clear instances. And I'm like, okay, I guess he didn't have enough money then. You know what I mean? So tomorrow he does some piece of shit, or he does some basic, let's get this one innocent person out of a million people because it looks really good. And we go, wow, you know what I mean? And then we go, well, we need more. And it's like, well, you have to wait. He needs more money. You know what I'm saying? And it's funny. And I find it funny. I find it funny because I'm sitting right here with no money and doing the work of the 5%. So I'm not going to be all excited like that. And someone who has extreme talent, Jay-Z has extreme talent and has copied so many people's careers as a blueprint. And you know it from Biggie all the way down to his own artist that he was blood-sucking and everything like that.
But
So
as
it's
a
like,
person who's an
and
artist,
then we're supposed to be all hype about brunches led by two people that nearly raped half of the industry. And we're supposed to be excited.
So what, this last
In the
one?
day.
The last one? The
We're
last
supposed to be happy about brunches that are led by people that blood sucked the whole industry, and we're supposed to be happy because it was black people that blood sucked.
I'm not gonna say he's talentless.
And
They saying he's talentless. I want to say he's not talentless.
No, that's not what I'm talking about.
No.
he said he was very talented.
No. This brother here says he's talented.
Nah,
The talentless camel. That's what he's calling.
Well,
Yeah, but the reason-
name calling is not.
The
let's
reason
hide
that
in that.
instead of saying, how come there's 2 billionaires, the real question is, how come there's 2 billionaires and there's not lots of millionaires? How come there's no wealth that spreads around to anyone else? And then all you can
And
do,
where are our
all you
museums?
could do to prove wealth is if you took a picture next to him at the Rock Nation brunch. You know what I mean? And look,
Die-head fans.
No, here's
Die-hard
the-
fans.
here's the
To me,
thing. See, we gotta create our own.
The level of talent, and I want to put it right here though, and I don't want to compare, but just put it in.
But he signed Boo, he got
the
Bougie
level
now.
of
Man, step out there.
Yo, stop it.
level of talent.
Step out.
But listen,
And
guys,
Mary Mecca.
the level of talent.
Say you up on fire.
Yo, this is
the level of
DX21
talent
Day
and the level
Son.
of skill is not even, to me, not even close to Jay-Z. And Nipsey did so much more in that short amount of time, and that was so much more sincere and so much more worthwhile.
Big
And
up
we're supposed to
Nipsey
be all
Hussle. The
hyped
marathon continues.
about what Jay did. And there's no way that you're
I
gonna
wouldn't
tell
talk
me
about Jay.
that
I would never, ever in a million light years put Jay-Z anywhere near the late, great Nipsey Hussle.
But that's what I'm saying though.
All right, God, peace.
Peace.
Yo, peace.
Peace to the God.
And as like last week in Mecca, it morphed into a hip hop conversation.
Yes, peace, Jake. All right, peace, keep building though, man.
No, that's what I'm saying. I've always been critical because, and Dayson knows this, right? He's always had those thoughts, though, and they were always sincere. But he knows, though, that no one, except for me and very few others, were willing to write about the disagreeable things that they were seeing from Jay-Z, whether musically or what he was doing as far as business in hip-hop. And how that negatively, trickled and spread throughout the industry.
But as far as the borrowing from the younger talent, I mean, as an artist myself,
I'm saying borrow lightly, it's jacking. It's jacking.
You get
He was
influenced.
jacking, what was it, Young Guns or whatever like that?
Yes.
He was jacking. He was jacking Ghostface Killer because he didn't do emo rap song cry until Supreme Clientele. Your blueprint is a copy of Supreme Clientele.
well, even Nas said on there, I borrowed from both of them. So even Nas admitted to doing it.
And how come
On the
Nas's
lower
product
stage.
though is that still an original copy at the end? Is an original work of art though.
Well,
that
that's
is
what artists
No.
artists are influenced by each other.
We sample all that kind of stuff, but it is an original product that comes through. Now I'm talking about biting though, where we're like, wow, you've just deflated this man's greatest attributes because you're doing it now in kind of a,
Yeah, but we
took it
all
too
know
far.
that he's
You know what though, Jason? You need somebody to take your writing style that is so dope and just totally jack you so you know how it feels.
somebody already has.
Alright, so is he your Jay-Z?
Yeah, but no, but the thing is, somebody jacked my style, but they never do it like I can do it. So they can go ahead and try to be
Yeah,
an
but there's
imitation. And then guess what? I'm gonna invent a new style.
Jay-Z Jackson, he does it better than they do it. And to me, that's still
Well, shit, the person who jacked my style does it better than I do it. So what? He's still not me. He doesn't have my mind. I can give 3 fucks.
Oh, now you got the religious people. Now it's a Jay-Z talk.
No,
It's a Jay-Z talk
Look
now.
at this though, right?
Yeah, but Jay-Z wore flag, so it's relevant.
Look at this though.
He brought himself into
The
this
knowledge
conversation
not,
of
no,
wearing
look
flag.
at God, the knowledge not, see, this is where people, they want a robotic discussion that goes like, are we God of this room here or the entire universe? What is not in the purview of what we're talking about here? We're talking about a black man that owns more wealth than almost everyone in the world that is black, right?
Mm-hmm.
We can say that. So if we're God and we deal with the knowledge letter in the alphabet, and we say the only way to be a king, though, is to know the knowledge
No,
itself
he's
and
not a
knowledge
psycho-
all of the other
he's not
things
a-
that are around us to make the proper decision, the right wisdom, and the right way to act accordingly, and how we rule, then we gotta discuss all these things. Because at the same time, when me and Dayson are building, we're not building like we're hoping Jay-Z would do something. We're building, however we disagree, we're building on like, how are we going to do what we're supposed to do, and how people either in our way or for us.
Well, I mean, that's why I say we need those type of people, because the philanthropy,
Right.
say for
And
instance,
let me just know. That's why the conversation is worthwhile. It's like, yo, we start talking about something and we're building on something that's blatantly in the degrees, and then we go into something else and you don't see how it goes in degrees and it seems frivolous. That's still in there. Everything is in there. You know what I mean?
Like Ragu.
yeah,
Why did
Prego
Jay-Z
sauce.
play? Did he ever?
Oh, it's Prego. It is Prego.
Just because he's from Marcy and he probably saw some guys.
Well, I mean, I don't think when they asked him, he said it was personal or something like that.
Yeah, he dismissed it, yeah.
Yeah, so maybe we need to find that conversation. Maybe he should come to a law school in Mecca and sit in front of the cameras with Mecca and speak to the nation. Or maybe he won't. Maybe he can go through Marcy, or maybe he can't come to law school. I don't know. Maybe Tata should come through. Break bread with the
Well,
gods.
here's the thing. Here's the thing, though. I say, in order for someone like that to really want to have a conversation with us like that,
We gotta get our house in order.
Well, that's the bottom line, and then bring something that's gonna add on relevancy. There's
Well,
more.
we got something in common unity that's very relevant.
Oh yeah.
We got plenty of things. I mean, your channel alone is showing the potential.
Yes.
Like I already reached out. We already put it out to So what was it? I reached out to Rob Kennan. He was talking something about doing something in Mass Appeal, but I don't know. People, it seems like when I come to them all nice and humble and shit, the motherfuckers don't respond to me. But when I come as fucking Abaddon, then everybody wants to, are you okay? Are you taking your medication? I don't want something to harm you. It's like people don't respect me.
Yo, Lord will manifest. You see my brother here, right?
When I come nice, they don't respect me. When I come like I'm a fucking cut your throat, then everybody wants to be all nice and shit.
All right.
Excuse me. Let me say this here. Mass Appeal.
Come on.
Mass Appeal, which is actually owned by Nas, and I don't even know if Nas knows to see I Kill Bass.
No, here's the thing. No, well, I think because Alchemist was at the
So
funeral.
Nas knows to see I Kill Bass.
I can't speak for Nas, but I know Alchemist knows because Alchemist was at the funeral.
Yeah, Alchemist was there. But my whole point is that Rob, I talked to him about doing it.
No, God.
Will you fucking let me listen to me say this shit here?
All right, so Bill, because I want to tell you about exactly what you're about to say, but add on. Add on, no, because I got something to say, but I'm gonna let the guy add on.
Doing the documentary on the Nation of Gods and Earth through Mass Appeal, like he did with the Wu-Tangs of Mike Cement, Sasha Jenkins, who I've actually had dealings with, because back when I first started coming into the Source magazine, they had done this story on hip hop journalism, which I did, but sidebars were inserted by other people who I will not mention that were disparaging to certain people like Sasha, but I did not write them. So when we met up at when he did the Hip Hop Theater Festival, he had done a play with the Beatnuts, and me and him had a chance to speak, and I told him, I didn't do it, I had nothing to do with that. My article was my article, the sidebars were the sidebars. So we got a history, and I think that we should come together and actually do a documentary on the Nation of Gods and Earth on the same level that was on of Bikes and Men. And we have a lot of the material already on the Law School Mecca's channel. You were about to say? I'm gonna shut the fuck up now. Satufu,
No.
Satufu, STFU, Satufu.
Now, I just want to add on, God, about again the organization. You know what I'm saying? Now, these are great ideas. Let's put them together, and whatever we have, we'd have to put it forth in a way that
A proposal.
And not just that, just to speak where it's like it's more commanding. Because right now it's just a bunch of random ideas. You know what I'm saying? And these random ideas, as they come across the desk of these important people that you're talking about, they're like, so what?
That's what we're doing in the office.
And
all of these random ideas into something.
Okay, and I don't
reached
know.
out to my D for artists for us to do storyboards for videos, storyboards for the movies. I know the thing. I've been studying this thing. I'm the Turtle Clan Turtle Man. So I've been taking my time all of these years absorbing the game. And for those of you out there who have seen me in this particular industry, I've been doing this since 1995, studying this game.
Definitely, always.
And the reason why all of this is relevant is because it's about nation building, ultimately. So all of this feeds into the ultimate goal of the Law World Manifest.
Actual fact. Now these are the two brothers that I would like to add on and build with and come together and do some material with. And yeah, I would love to do that. We just have to really focus it.
You're the more organization. I'm a person who's like,
You're fucking sporadic.
Yes, and energy.
God, can you help me organize this? Can you help me this?
He's the longest one. If anybody, the two of y'all.
What?
Keep me on the earth. I do not want to go to Neptune.
Right, because you are like you will like just float the fuck away. Like,
yes,
like
I'm not gonna deny it. I will float the fuck away.
You know, but I would like to see the sis pull it together. But like I said, you as we built before, you come up with this idea, and then you want to go like fucking miles away, and then
One at a time.
come back like let's develop this idea and take it from knowledge and born.
Yes, sir.
You know what I'm saying? Because these are supreme ideas, but they can't be totally supreme until it's taken from knowledge to born. So,
Yes, sir.
so that's the science though. But with that, you know what I'm saying, I'm not gonna let y'all be privy to the entire meeting because we're gonna build an add-on so it could be complete, But this was a beautiful class. Peace to Sunez.
Peace to the gods and nerds. Peace to everybody on there, including the naysayers and
Peace
contrary
and relation to
questioners.
gods and nerves.
It's my brother Day's son there, and with
Yes,
that,
sir.
we're gonna say peace.
Peace.
Yo, Saku, I'm gonna get in tune with you. I know I said I'm gonna do it, but we gonna get in tune. And everybody else, AG actually
One more thing.
add
Just
on.
like the father taught the children, it is my goal to teach women. Because by teaching
Yo,
women,
come on,
I'm
stop
teaching
that, God.
children. No, seriously.
God, man.
Seriously, James.
Dude,
Educate a
man.
woman, you educate a nation.
Okay, God,
Educate
oh
a
man.
woman, you educate a nation. Educate a woman, you educate a nation. James Agri. Look up that quote. We take nothing on face value. Everything is subject to show and prove and must come out right and exact. He's the same brother who wrote the parable of the eagle. And if you don't know the parable of the eagle, then you're slacking on your macking. James Agri.
I'm slacking on my man.
Educate a woman, you educate a nation.
I understand.
Don't act on me.
I'm gonna leave that alone. I'm understanding the cipher. So peace.
Oh, peace.
Peace.